Are we live? We should be live. We could be live. Hello.
Hi, Internet.
Am I alive? Is no one talking?
You're live. I just think
okay,
no one
good.
was talking.
You're absolutely
know.
live.
Oh, Jordan, I'm somewhat convinced you're a voice inside my head that's feeding me weird songs and games and different shows.
Oh, excellent. I have that effect on people.
Quick, Jordan, start humming the Tetris theme.
I was doing the
No.
sound check, so I was deafened and not talking. But hi.
Welcome to the April? No, May? No, March. March.
It's
March.
April.
No, April. It is April.
Yeah, we
But
call
it's-
the document April, so it's April.
Yeah, so the April
We
edition.
also call it a
of,
podcast, though.
Yeah, it's partially podcast. It's partially just a bunch of people sitting around talking. I am
that's-
at a what?
A bunch of people sitting around talking is what a podcast is.
No one needs to know.
Oh
Um,
shit.
I am at a local convention or like a little workshop thing of local board games and whatnot at my local library, and I decided, you know what, fuck it, we do it live.
Literally.
Then we're just gonna show up here and set up a table, just start doing the podcast with a big screen showing all of our previous gameplay. Frax's soothing historical voice playing on one screen. Our Tuesday game on another, and then the actual podcast on the third. So you will hear people talking and walking by. So just be aware. It's part of the it's part of the experience in the charm.
We can just
but-
soak in the atmosphere that way, remotely. I'm sitting next to a bookcase even, so I'm really there.
I appreciate your enthusiasm in supporting the libraries, Frax. It almost makes up for all your speak.
Almost, but not quite.
Your Gen Alpha speak. Yeah. That being said, this month's podcast, actually the topic, because it's extremely relevant, is to like scheduling board games or things to do that can fill in the time when none of the other pieces, you might do everything right from our previous podcast. You might have a good group, great session 0, great plan, good story, good backstory. The tools are running, you got the map set up, you got everything up and running, and then scheduling, which is the main the BBEG of any campaign.
You never know when someone's grandma eats their homework and now they can't make the game.
Yeah. Or when someone leaves their kitchen on fire.
Or when someone pays their internet bill.
You know, surprisingly, I haven't had that happen often, but if I had a nickel for every time that happened, I'd have 10 nickels and I still wouldn't pay my ISP.
Fair.
Yes, for those wondering what the inside joke is, my internet service provider was genius in telling me that I'm good with my 10 or 10-year-old modem when I switched my plans. It wasn't good, and every time I paid my bill, the actual service would be like, "Oh, wait a minute, you're on this plan," and would attempt to update my service, which would cause my internet to drop because my modem would have a shroud. That happened for 2 months in a row. It was good times.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. But today you'll find out what to do when someone has this happen in your online TTRPG group, because offline I don't think the modem matters that much. Hopefully.
Just as true. And also the previous week, not the one the week before, Discord launched a fantastic update that changed its display and caused everything to just not work when it came to Discord and Foundry, for example. Open TCP connections or whatnot were kind of like bumping heads with Discord's below. So that was fun. So again, there are times where session doesn't go as planned, and sometimes you have to be an audible and try to work something out. And today's topic is kind of all about that. Also about like little one shots you can do, ideas, things that we've done in the past or have participated in, and ways to kind of help with the organization. Hopefully, we kind of give you guys a little bit of a confidence boost, so that way, if something does happen, it's not as discouraging because you just have the tools or resources available to kind of do something to fill in that time. So, that being said, as our normal tradition, we're going to talk about some of the stuff we've been doing last month, the news, just kind of see things that have popped up, if there's anything that's interesting for any of you guys, and kind of go from there. So, without further ado, let us start with Frax. You had something interesting that you wanted to bring up. Let's start with you. Let's kind of go and let's talk about some of the stuff that has been interesting you in the last month.
Yeah, there was actually yesterday was some really big news. Because Chris Perkins, one of the main people behind Dungeons and Dragons, is retiring from from officially working for Wizards of the Coast, because he very much is of the opinion that he probably will be doing things on as a fan instead of as an employee. There's pretty big news because he's been with Dungeons and Dragons from before it was even owned by Wizards of the Coast. Like his first work for the TTRPG was all the way back in 1988, an adventure he wrote. I forgot to look up for which edition of D&D that would have been. I think it would be Advanced D&D in '88. Some
probably
Yes,
second
so
edition.
yeah, AD&D
Yeah.
likely.
So that is in the before times of the before times. Like, that was before I was born, even. Which is coincidentally when he officially started working for D&D in 1997. And as long as I've been alive, he has been working there. So yeah, pretty big name in the TTRPG industry. Part of the reason why TTRPGs actually got big in the first place. Like, his work has been instrumental for that across all the editions of D&D. It was also one of the key people for the making of Baldur's Gate 3. Like, he was doing most of the communication with Larian Studios for that. So yeah. Oh, and he was a lore advisor for that as well, I believe. So yeah, after a long career as designer, story lead, and I believe ending as creative director even, so the head of the entire practical business, he's finally, he's retiring. We'll miss him because I'm pretty sure they will miss him. It's hard to lose someone who's such a veteran in the business. Oh, also he was the lead story designer on Curse of Strahd, which is probably the best D&D 5th edition adventure. Definitely one of the most famous.
And I think he did a live play for that for years, didn't he?
Yeah, he does a lot of like he does and has done a lot of DM style things like live plays. He had a DM guidance block at some points. He's done live DMing several times, I believe. He's very passionate about TTRPGs and Dungeons and Dragons specifically.
I missed some of that because I had someone come up and ask me some questions about the ATH, and I was showing us super hard. But we're still talking about Chris Perkins and how passionate he is about D&D and just tabletops in general.
Yeah, I just went quickly over some of the highlights of his career.
I mean, I know Acquisitions Inc. is one of my favorite. It's just
True. Yeah,
that's
he was
just a lot of
involved
fun.
in that too.
Still one of my favorite moments. It's like you could do ice magic, you could do fire magic, ice fire, fire ice, and all he did was class. It was a really cool thing. It was an NPC that thought he had magic powers, but they just cast a minor like glow on his hand. But
He also was very big into if I remember correctly, the Star Wars role-playing game system, back when it was done by Wizards of the Coast after they had acquired it from West End Games.
Yeah.
But then it went over to Fantasy Flight.
Yeah, he was
I think-
working on that at the same time that the rest of the team was working on D&D 4th edition.
Do I want to say that explains a lot?
Well-
4th edition gets a bad reputation, but it's
It does. That's why I was asking if I want to say it.
To be
Yeah.
fair, actually, that's one of the things I was looking into is like learning 4th edition to see if I can run it. But yeah, that does kind of, a lot of people did kind of swap out during 4th edition and then come back after. So that's it.
I mean, 4th edition is the only D&D game in which you can be a vampire pixie.
I mean, I'm sure there's homebrew for 5th.
No, this was official though.
Oh, okay, that's different.
Yes, officially a vampire pixie from Wizards of the Coast material. Because vampire was a
Amazing.
class and pixie was a race.
Oh, right, that makes sense. It's kind of like that's sort of like what you can do in Pathfinder 2nd edition at the moment, because I'm pretty sure there is a pixie race, so you can take vampire as an archetype.
Yeah, that's true, Jordan. That's a lie. It's not the only game that you can do that.
Well, then I stand incorrect.
It's funny because it's for the same reasons, just translated to a different system. Like it's a race and it's a class feature basically you can take and add on to your main class.
I mean, to break a lance for Jordan, he said from Wizards of the Coast material.
This is true. Also, it's
True,
technically
very
not a vampire; it's a Damphir. So you are kind of.
Isn't that vampire archetype as well? I thought that was an older
Oh,
one. That
that's
was
true.
legacy
Yeah,
by now.
that's true. No, yeah, there is legacy vampire. That's true. That's true.
But yeah, vampire is the better option, which basically has all your vampire flavor and improved
I mean,
mechanically. And
You
I'm
could be a
quietly
pixie
going off
Damphir
topic.
ghoul. Oh no, you could be a pixie Damphir ghost. All right. Well,
Yep.
anyway, that's too much.
The ghost of a pixie vampire.
Yeah.
I would just like blood bites through the neck, like just not interacting with the body at all. No.
That'd be kind of interesting. No, just have the ghost actually like drain the soul directly.
I mean, there's a
That'd be
series that sort of has that. Like, What We Do in the Shadows has an energy vampire that doesn't drink blood, but they drain people's, basically, energy, soul by boring them, which is incredibly funny. The actor really brings it home, but I've gone over that before.
But that's
Totally not taking notes for Tuesday.
that's the thing for 5th edition Dampier too. They have different ways of sustenance. Like
True, actually.
I think it's something like living off dreams or blood. There's different like sustenance methods for 5th edition
Yeah.
Dampier. There's a roll table even, I think.
Yeah, I believe it's 6 or 8 different options when you select the Dampier. I had a different name. Lineage is what they call it for Ravenloft. That's in the Ravenloft book, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I know. A shout out here to Solzy. Solzy's character, one of Solzy's characters is a Damphir that feeds off of emotions, which is really fun. Little bit of RP because their character tends to be somewhat emotionless and very kind of like neutral about everything, and then if they feed off the emotion, that emotion starts to kind of overtake, and so that becomes a thing. So it's a really good game.
Yeah, there's a ton of creative things you can do in all the systems. But yeah, but a lot of that has been made possible by Chris Perkins, also because like Pathfinder in part is like he's not directly worked for Paizo, but you know Paizo is an offshoot of Wizards of the Coast in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of good to see that he retired and he still has the enthusiasm of wanting to play it as a fan, which might actually be kind of cool because you might see him doing more, like guest appearances or doing more.
Yeah,
things
guest
like
appearances, DM stuff in his own time. Like he's definitely not quitting TTRPGs. He said.
Yeah, because there's a big difference. There's a big difference between like being a fan and just playing it, and also working and designing in it. Because that you have to do a lot. There's a lot more compared to just actually just being a fan. So
Yeah, in his own words, they now just delivered the 2024 D&D edition, which is selling really well according to him. So he considers that like a good crowning achievement to step down, like bring it all home.
I would agree.
Yeah, definitely, and I wish him all the best with whatever he decides to do next now. Be
Also,
it retirement, be it fan things.
I would like him to do the occasional guest DM thing because he has this really interesting and fun DMing style where he's I would call it he's a heel DM. Like he always outwardly acts super I'm gonna kill my players, but he's actually just there to have fun. Which is a really, really fun time even as a viewer. So I'd love him to drop into certain places or streams or podcasts and just be the heel DM he always used to be.
And there's a whole bunch of oh, go on, right?
No, go ahead. Go for it.
No, there's a whole bunch of they're all starting to sprout up right now. There's a lot of TTRPG getaways and stuff like that. I know two off the top of my head. One's Green Dragon Fest, which is there's a place called the Ancient Lore Village down in Tennessee, which is basically like a Hobbit village that's been built there. And basically that's like they get a whole bunch of guest GMs and you basically spend the weekend down there playing like DM Scotty and the a lot of the dungeon Bob the World Builder and Dr. DM are all down there. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he starts turning up and stuff like that. And then there's also a cruise, if I remember correctly, which is like a huge TTRPG cruise, which is just like nonstop playing for like a week when you go to the Bahamas.
That sounds amazing and also kind of like
Lame, but amazing and lame.
Yeah, but it can be both. I just can't imagine him turning up at those events and people just going, "Wow, you really look like Chris Perkins, like Tony Hawk style."
oh, it's on the
Yes.
It might be the 3 Bahama Mamas I've had before playing this game, but you look an awful lot like Chris Perkins.
Nice.
I can see that happen.
Yeah. I still love that with Tony Hawk. That's great.
Aside from that, I do have one other piece of news that's sadly not as lauding and exciting. It's kind of cut and dry, but it is pretty important news.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll switch tabs real quick, like this. Boom. This is the Fortnite microtransaction store. Be not afraid. Or B, actually. The thing about it is that in the European Union, they've passed a not a law yet, but it's basically a guidance manual from one of the agencies that oversees, among other things, microtransactions in gaming. The reason I bring it up is because one of the new guidelines is that they want that every microtransaction store, and they're actually doing this for festivals as well. When they display a price in premium currency, such as the V-Bucks, they want the game to display the actual price in like real money along with it, so that people
like a
aren't
converted price.
yeah, so they're not a step of abstraction away from the actual price. They can just see like, okay, this is 800 V-Bucks, but it will cost me this amount of real money. In order to combat exploitative practices a bit. It's not a law yet, but the memo did end with the what kind of veiled threats that they will continue to monitor the situation, and if companies don't behave, they will make it a law.
Ooh. Now, when
So
you
I
say
thought
that
it was pretty important.
when they say the price, so I know, for example, if something costs 800 V-Bucks, but you can only buy like $1,000. Are they going to just tell you what the closest package is, or are they going to tell you like a converted price?
No. The thing is, practices that force consumers to purchase unwanted in-game virtual currency should be avoided is also in the guidelines. So they basically say, yeah, you should basically just give it a real money sticker price and have people buy it with that.
Yeah,
That's-
they're actually
that's
one
even
step
better.
away from saying don't use premium currencies, but they don't want to go that far because it brings its own host of problems, like people who got premium currency saved up, and premium currency can sometimes be earned in game, and you can directly earn money because that would bring its own issues as well. So this is kind of the middle ground they've found in the guidelines so far. It's a refreshingly modern take from an otherwise very, large bureaucratic entity that kind of has a dinosaur reputation every now and then.
Yeah. Also, the two actual bombshell recommendations in those guidelines is customers' right of withdrawal should be respected,
Yeah, that too.
which would mean 2 weeks of withdrawal for online purchases in Germany, for example. You know how you always have to sign the waiver, like, yeah, I'm buying this DLC and I waive my right for withdrawal immediately? That would be a thing that people would have to look at. And also a pretty like inconcrete one. Game design and gameplay should be respectful of different consumer vulnerabilities. So basically, yeah, a lot of the psychological like entrapment, if you want to go that far, which I might actually, that goes into the pricing and FOMO and all that kind of things, are under scrutiny as well, basically, which is good.
Yeah, especially like the loot box hype has kind of died down nowadays, but it did show that a lot of these mechanisms as designed were very exploitative in a way that mimics often the way casinos operates. Except casinos would need a gambling license and have a minimum age, whereas games didn't need all of that and were just accessible to just about anyone.
I believe there
So
was an argument that. Oh, keep going.
Oh, you can go.
I believe there was an argument that was actually held in. It was either Belgium or Holland,
It
where
was
they actually
Belgium.
was the FIFA one, where they basically you were in like the British Parliament the week before arguing that like the microtransactions were not part of the game, and then they had to argue because the Belgium was the first one that banned that kind of thing, predatory stuff targeting kids, and then that's why FIFA doesn't come out in their country now, because apparently it
Yeah,
is integral to the game, or so
yeah,
they say.
it's a little more nuanced. Belgium by law now requires that if you have purchases with a random outcome, so with no control over it whatsoever, you need to apply for a gambling license, like a casino, to be able to operate in Belgium. So far, not a single game has actually done that because it creates a dangerous precedence legally. Like you say, people in other countries will start pointing at it. Especially if you admit it in one country, then the rest of them aren't going to pretend they didn't see anything.
Yeah,
So
basically,
it's in effect it's a ban. In practice, they are allowed to do it with the proper licensing.
Yeah, because I mean they
basically,
actively. Oh,
yeah,
they
the
actively
moment,
refer to these people as whales, which is the
Yeah.
casino term for gambling addicts.
Yeah.
with a lot of money and little sense or a lot of boredom, depending.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, the moment somebody would apply for the license, they would admit this is gambling, so nobody's doing it.
Basically, yeah. And because it's Belgium, it's a very small market. It's not that much of a profit cut. But if more countries start doing it over time, and if the European Union as a whole starts applying laws to reduce exploitative design, then yeah, things might get a little more fair and healthy in general if they do it correctly, which is always a big if because, people will start finding backdoors or maybe things are not defined well because the people making the law don't have as much experience. So that's in the future. The
That's
idea and the principle of it are fair and are hopefully a good thing for consumers and for gamers.
That's an interesting just overall shift in how things are going, because a lot of the negatives of the past 10 years of gaming in terms of like with the microtransaction and whatnot, I think finally people are starting to people are starting to vote with their wallets, I guess, or just tired of it. So
Yeah, a bit
I
of
think we're
both.
starting to
And
see
of course, like the people who are now entering like at the bottom level, the legislative organs did grow up with those now. So they're not completely unaware of how those games operated anymore. And yeah, they're not exactly like presidents or members of parliament often, but they can still like the influence starts somewhere, you know?
Oh yeah, that's some interesting news. So
I may bring up one too that's kind of important. I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, but it's kind of been in the ether as of late. Is the um, Wizards of the Coast laying off 90% of the Sigil workforce, basically already killing their virtual tabletop as it just launched, and basically leaving a skeleton crew for essentially for updates.
I mean,
The big one was reported there with Andy Collins, who's another huge veteran of the world of. He was actually brought in originally to try to do the fourth edition virtual tabletop. If those of you that remember that, and then kind of it kept working. Apparently, he worked there for since 1996, and apparently he was fired. And they're apparently Sigil's basically now at this point dead on arrival. So all of the stuff that they did with D&D Beyond and everything like that is now sent for their virtual tabletop is now pretty much gone. So Sigil has been released, but I don't know how much those who are left out of, I believe it's like 3 or 4 people, because the staff was around 40 something and they fired like 30 something people. So about 3, basically, most people have estimated are left working on this product. So who knows what the future holds for that one, but it probably doesn't seem very good at this point.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs because, like, last podcast we were basically waxing over how good Sigil could be because they released it in alpha and it was clearly unfinished. That's how an alpha works. But the foundations for something really good were there. Like, it worked relatively smooth. The way the graphics displayed were really nice. The character creation was good. It just needed more of everything and needed to be finished with the necessary polish, add in all of the D&D features, integrated properly with D&D Beyond. They had something good there, so I'm not entirely sure where this came from.
Apparently, and this is once again just stuff that I've been reading, the new books have not actually been selling very well. The numbers on D&D Beyond are actually very low compared to some of the some of the other previous numbers out there. And Dr. DM actually pointed out that a book released by, I think it was on How to GM, by one of his friends, actually made it higher on the New York Times bestseller list than the Player's Handbook, which only cracked 87 in overall sales out of the top 100, which is not very good.
I
So
think that
I'm
one doesn't
guessing
count for digital purchases, though. Does it?
it does not.
it does not. But they also backed it up by saying that the D&D Beyond sales were not looking too good at this moment in time. So um, that, coupled with our wonderful stock market that's going on right now, maybe that might be the reason for it, and maybe they're just going to use D&D as for licensing, kind of like what Games Workshop is kind of doing right now with their licenses, when they're
Absolutely.
making
The
more
movie was
money
good.
off of. Yeah, making more money off of Warhammer the name than Warhammer the game.
yeah,
Uh,
that's something that Games Workshop has really finally like. They're like, wait a minute, yeah, you can make a game out of our license. You're gonna make a ton of money off of it. So that's actually
Right.
kind of been a good thing because like Space
it
Marine
could be
2
a.
is great.
Well, D&D has a lot of potential as a franchise as a whole. They could do a lot of movie series. Like, I won't call it a cinematic universe because that term got kind of cursed after Marvel. But like, there's a lot of potential to tell stories in the setting because that's what it was designed for.
Right.
So
And of course, as we all know, there's also Beholder Funko Pops. We can't forget about those.
Uh,
Also, don't forget about the Transformer dice. Those are actually really neat.
Yeah.
Actually.
I think a lot of it too. So like my thought on 2024 is maybe a lot of people are similar to my thought processes of sitting and waiting and seeing how people think about it before they make an investment. So that could also be what's going on because again, a lot of people now are due to recent events with team member. There's a lot of them are just kind of sitting and waiting. So that could also be a factor into all of it. So there's, it's hard to tell. I mean, a positive of all of this is that the people that did work on that, I mean, they did an amazing job of what they have, and there shows potential. And oftentimes, someone sees like, hey, they're not doing it. Maybe they could do something similar or good ideas.
Yeah.
So there's always that opportunity or possibility
Definitely, yeah.
that opens the door, especially if those, there's a lot of people now are not looking. Which I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms with how things are handled. But they might be, a lot of really good things recently have come out from like former X of this, whatever that were let go, and they made their own studio, made their own game, made their own thing. And
Yeah.
there's a possibility for some positivity for that. And
Mhm.
I'm hoping a lot of the features that are already like in the digital are just going to be released with like what's already in the and maps and whatnot. So maybe they might kind of get something basic out of it because the fancy graphics and all that was cool. But just having some sort of a 3D, like something that's kind of easy to integrate, it could always be cool. So maybe that might be something.
Yeah. Honestly, just the simple fact that it was integrated with D&D Beyond would have done a lot even without fancy graphics. If all it had been was literally Roll20 with D&D Beyond integration, it would have been awesome. They wanted to make it more than that, which was ambitious, and it was looking good. So maybe someone else will pick up the torch. There's definitely some alternatives out there that are going in a similar direction, such as come on, the name escapes me at the moment.
There's something Spire, if I remember correctly, does is
Tailspire.
Yeah, Tailspire. That's
Yeah.
the one. That's the one I was thinking of. That also likes to build 3D environments. It's a little, it's in a different art style, but it does have some cool integration as well with Hero Forge, so you can import the minis that you make in Hero Forge. So
that's kinda-
it covers some of the same ideas in a different way. It's also not entirely finished yet, I believe, but that one that is very that one is steaming ahead. So we'll see how that goes. I
made
think
a-
that one definitely has a lot of potential as well. I know someone who's DMing in it, and he's very positive about it. He loves working with it. Though building maps with it takes a while because you are making an entire 3D map out of parts.
yes.
That's the nature of the beast.
It's kind of it kind of gives me the same like serotonin hit of like Minecraft of when you build something because you're just kind of putting pieces together and then you zoom out and like, oh, okay, yeah, that's my building. Oh, that's
Yeah.
my tower. So it is fun, but it does take time. It's not something that like the party's like, hey, we're gonna take this left instead of the right that you obviously have planned. All right, give me 5 minutes. I'll be right back. It's not something that you'll be able to do that for. But it's cool
So-
for
The thing about both of those, I think what people are not taking into account, 2024 is a rework. It's not you have to buy those books to keep playing D&D. So currently it's
That too.
more on the priority list for people, for sure,
That
Right.
too.
than other independent releases. And I think you should have factored that in.
I've
And-
sometimes called it like 2024's book of everything because it kind of it's just to me it feels like it's a bigger kind of Tasha's or Xanathars with, in my opinion, a better content to it. But in the end, it modifies base D&D while
Yeah.
including all of the other rules that aren't modified. So you have a new start point. And if I was a new player and I wanted to get into D&D right now, I'd only need to buy 3 books instead of the player guide, the DM guide, the monster manual, then Volo's guide to the multiverse because that overhauled the way monster works. Then Xanathars, I need Tasha's. I can keep going for a while.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
basically a condensed edition of basically all the good content of the last 2-3 years of Splat books. And the thing is,
Yeah, pretty much.
a lot of the fan base already owns those.
Yeah,
And they released the base classes in the 2024 free rules. So if you want the basic rules, you already get those for free. So there's just not a lot of pressure to buy the books, which is not bad, I think.
no, exactly.
And people shouldn't wonder about the sales not being stellar, even if it is the more well-rounded, more finished system, in my opinion.
Well, the way I see it is, it's going to be split up into three groups. If you don't like 5e, this 2024 isn't like a revamp or a new edition, so you're not going to come. It's not going to draw a lot of people. If you enjoy it, you're probably going to pick it up. And if you're kind of on the neutral but still playing 5e and enjoying it, you don't really need to. There's no pressure. So it
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
of splits it up. It splits it up, and it's like
One
plays it
piece
safe
of
and it's
advice
fun.
I do want to say is that if you're the DM, even if you don't intend to playing or DMing a D&D 24 game, the Dungeons Master guide for 24 actually has a lot of good rules that are generally applicable to DMing, like that are not 5e specific or that are just clarifications of things that are vaguely defined in base in 14 D&D. So, and it has the structured guides to making an entire homebrew campaign that's not really anywhere in the normal DMG. So I think that if there's any book for like if you want to play your game, that might be worth it. It's that one. And otherwise, literally just like I said before, take the bits and pieces that you like and integrate it into 14. You have the total freedom of doing that.
I mean, I would argue for DM the Monster Manual is absolutely also worth its money because it's chock full of new, rebalanced, and adjusted monsters that are just in a way better state than the old. That's just how it is.
Mm.
The thing that's also coming on top, D&D Beyond offers campaign sharing for people that a lot of the people I know that still play D&D just have. So groups of 15 people buy 3 books because it's 3 groups that need the book once. So yeah, the sales numbers do not surprise me.
Then again, the base 5e sales didn't exactly go as hot either, I believe. Takes a while to build up. We'll see where it goes and how it goes, and in the meantime, I just keep playing all of my TTRPGs.
Yep.
Yep.
And yeah, also on Sigil, I mean, we tried it. The thing is, I did not really even see the announcement, so I'm just really like shaking my head on how that whole thing went, because the thing is, the software as itself had all the foundations it needed. It just was incomplete. Like it even had all these. It could import your D&D Beyond character, Sans homebrew, which is understandable for the first version of the game. It had a lot of minis of the monster manual. It had a lot of things available. It had a nice map builder with prefabs and like custom building pieces to build your own landscape. It has a little mini maker that was basically like Hero Forge Lite. And it had part of the spells automated, where if you would click the spell button, it would subtract the spell slot and do whatever the spell did, and the part not automated, and that was all marked. So it was a really, really clean beta, actually. The thing is, I did not see that announcement, and that wasn't really announced anywhere big, if I recall correctly. It did barely not cross my table, which shouldn't be a thing, honestly.
As far as I know, there's no official word from Wizards of the Coast. This was just from one of the people that was laid off, the leads on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
I believe.
No,
So-
I was just talking about like the actual beta release wasn't really announced at all.
Yeah, it was announced on D&D Beyond. That was
Yeah,
about it.
it was announced in the like content slideshow at the top on page 3 or something. So not,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest, because that's not a point where a lot of people get to if they open D&D Beyond. Like it wasn't even D&D Beyond the front page, so to say. So all in all, very questionable decisions on that project.
Yeah, I'm
Which is
wondering
sad.
too. I'm wondering too because I know it was running on Unreal. I wonder if because Unreal is notoriously difficult to work with. I wonder if that also like the scope kind of was like, okay, there's a bit too much for this. Because I know
Maybe.
that tends to happen to a lot of projects when they go with Unreal. just because of how difficult it can be. It's amazing, but it's also kind of like it can be a little rough. So, but I mean, it's gone, but there's still other VTTs available. Foundry's still there.
Yeah.
Fantasy Ground. There's
And
still a
like
lot of
the other
people who-
VTTs are doing fine. Foundry is going as good as ever. They recently had some good updates as well for various systems on there. Roll20 is rapidly polishing itself up with Project Jumpgate, like we said last podcast.
this podcast,
Tailspire is still there, steaming ahead. Fantasy Grounds, like there's a lot of choice. But that's
Yeah,
if you want to hear all of that, last podcast should be up on the YouTube channel, I think.
let's see if their pressure to innovate stays around with Project Sigil not blooming over them anymore.
Probably. Jumpgate has been in the works for a while at least. I don't know about the other ones.
I mean, I know like Foundry has its own like system coming out. They're doing a lot of changes, so that's gonna be cool. So I would think some of the other ones are still going to because there's still that lot in need, especially now that like oh wait, there's a whole market of people that probably wouldn't have touched Foundry because they were waiting for Sigil or they just stick to that. That's not going to be a thing. Maybe they're going to reconsider and try something else. So there might be people that are like, oh, okay, now we're going to be trying to fill in that market because now people see the value of it, and they'll probably dip their toe. So, but yeah, interesting stuff. Thanks for bringing that up. I know we usually try to avoid negative topics, but sometimes it's just this is not so much. Yeah, it's negative, but it's also something that's happened. It's important, and it's good to see.
and it's a significant thing too. I mean, that's kind of the reason I kind of
No, and it's good that we can talk about this and kind of like just get a general idea because it's just good because it helps to be informed on these decisions. So that being said, I got some random news I thought I'd bring up too because I was just browsing the internet and for some reason someone told me something and I'm like, you're wrong. But apparently Game Informer's coming back. The corpse of Game Informer is returning.
Yeah. The thing about that is that they got bought by another company which is mostly known for its blockchain activities. So the jury's still out on how good it will be. But as it stands, the news we have is Game Informer is back. They got pretty much all of the old staff back as well. So
I
maybe they can just
remember
continue as they were, and then that would be nice. It would be awesome.
I remember just going to the store and buying games and being like, hey, you have your new Game Informers coming in, and just grabbing the actual books and just sitting and reading them. So
Yeah,
I'm
there's nothing quite like those old gaming magazines. Like, you don't have anything like that online.
Honestly, I do miss them a lot because I have a feeling if you're committed to print, the reviews were of a different quality level than they are today.
Yeah, and it's just having it again as a librarian. So I'm probably a little biased, but to have like a printed copy of something and it's just physically there and just have a shelf full. It's a cool feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really interesting news. So I was like, oh, that's cool, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Another piece of information or news that I found too. There was a poll, a BAFTA poll for the most influential game. Most influential video game of all time, and the game that actually was voted in on the poll was Shenmue 1 and 2.
Wait,
or
which
at least
one?
Shenmue.
Oh, Shenmue.
Yep.
Oh, what was the reason for that? Because I don't know Shenmue at all.
One second, I got someone coming up.
Gotcha.
Shenmue is basically the I guess, how do I describe this? The the genesis of the Yakuza games. Basically is the best way I can put that one. It was one of the really the first ones, and this is I have not played them. I own them, but I have not played them yet. But they were the um basically the first kind of open world story driven kind of games of that kind of
Mm.
nature.
Like even
And
Yes.
before stuff like Elder Scrolls 1 or something.
I got it on my video Ninja that's playing right now. If
I wouldn't say before Elder Scrolls One for consoles and stuff like that is definitely though. And they were very 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 popular in Japan and had a massive following behind them. And then the third one kind of killed any kind of goodwill there was to that
Oh,
one. There's a whole bunch of good reviews and stuff like that. People want to look them up online as to exactly what happened um, with all of that, but it was very they were extremely the first two games are extremely well received, and then the third one, which people kind of Duke Nukem Forever, where people were just waiting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it, and then when it finally arrived, it was just not not even on par. I'll be kind, not on par with games that it was basically that emulated it currently, its style. It not even on the same level of the Yakuza games, which this is the same company making them. And
that's
really,
the, the thing is, with Shenmue, it was so ahead of its time when it came out because the things that it does now, games now are still trying to emulate what they do. Like, and this was back Dreamcast, like 2000s, early, like.
it
So
was a big Dreamcast title. That should give you that right there.
okay, yeah,
yeah,
so
Oh,
that's
damn.
ancient.
yeah, it had like full day night cycles, NPCs going and like they have schedules.
Yeah.
You had different relationships with different NPCs. We did things for them. So a lot of like these systems and features that are in like modern games that are added in, like this had like a lot of them at their earliest kind of like when it was even before it was common. So it was definitely a game that was just I mean it was beloved by fans, but it wasn't like super popular because of how different it was to what was out there at the time. A lot of people kind of like you either loved it or you kind of were like, this is a weird game. I don't know what to do. Where's this
That's fair.
NPC? Why is he asleep? I don't want to wait. I don't want to play this
I
game.
can see that. Yeah, I can see. But look at the trailer that's playing. I can sort of see some elements of GTA in there as well, which also got massive ever since then.
1999 is when it came out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, this is like way before a lot of these games came out. So
Yeah,
it was really cool.
1999. That's the time when it was mostly first-person shooters and RTS games back then.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that was the time when people got like super ambitious with some of their games. I think a couple years later, Vampire's Bloodlines came out,
Hmm.
Yeah,
which
another-
was also, in my opinion, a very early predecessor of the like big RPG games we have like Baldur's Gate. And it tried doing it in 3D with actual voiceover, like really high budget, and it was
I mean-
really it was really ahead of its time. And yeah, a lot of like trying and see what sticks to the wall was done back then, but
Yeah.
today relegated to the indies.
I do have to
We can
say,
still
if
do
you
a fair
watch,
job.
if you watch people who've played the Vampire and this great game, it has some of the best facial animations of any game ever.
Yes,
Still to
actually.
this day. Especially when you compare it to like Bethesda games. Or,
Yeah.
so, no offense,
mean-
like they're great. I love me some Skyrim and Morrowind and whatnot, but a lot of games nowadays, it's just they don't have the expressions that game has. I don't know what about it but it just hits different.
I mean, I think they just did a thing that CDPR has been famous for. Like, there was no cutscenes. Everything was in engine. It just felt more alive. You went into a bar and somebody would talk at you from the side, and you had a camera move and were talking to that person. There you go. That's a thing that CDPR was loaded a lot with Cyberpunk, and that was just the logical evolution. Like, they just pushed it a bit further.
Yeah.
Where basically you can still move your camera, but people look at you depending if you look at them, and it selects the dialogue option towards the person you're starting to face, stuff like that. That was just the natural evolution, and Vampire's Bloodlines just did things that nobody else dared trying back in the day. I mean, it was they were the pants were a bit big because that game was marred with bugs and a wonky release, and I think the studio didn't survive that even. But it was a super ambitious try, and it's still with a lot of fan patches, it's still an amazing RPG.
It's stuff like this where the question, what is the most influential video game, to me is always a hard one to answer because I don't think you can really point at just one. There's a lot of
No.
contenders for the title, and they all have a lot of valid reasons. Like, there's people that will give you Dark Souls for it for a lot of good reasons. Shenmue, Minecraft, even. Warcraft 3 is another one that often comes up because of how many genres it has informed. Um, a lot of people will say Tetris because it's the one that basically made gaming a thing in the first place. So it's a hard question to answer, and I think there's a lot of correct answers to it.
The thing about it, which is so interesting, is this was not like, oh, the Academy or the whatever picked it. No, this was a poll. So so that was super surprising because I wouldn't have think that many people would have compared to some of the other places. That's just fairly. I thought it was really interesting. A shout out to the originals, which you can also get on Steam, 1 and 2, which are still are fantastic. So
Well, they're getting remastered at some point. I believe I heard
They did.
something like that.
yeah, they did.
Yeah.
With the release of 3, so they're on Steam. So
Gotcha.
yeah. So I haven't played 3 as much as I would love to. I heard that just like it wasn't as good, so we'll see. Maybe in the future I'll make it to it.
If there's any constant in gaming, it's that at some point someone will make a sequel. No, wait, that's movies. Sorry. No, but yeah, in the end, like, even if there's no direct sequels, people will keep making stuff that is inspired by it. Like you said with the Yakuza games, even if it's the same studio, but no good ideas ever just left alone.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. Everyone will steal everyone's ideas and then put their own spin on it, improve it a little, sometimes show which ways it doesn't work, because that's just, part of trying is failing. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah. So that being said, does anyone else have any kind of news that they would like to do last month?
Yeah, I think I still have a little wholesome snippet. Like if we want to end the news section with that, because it's ending with animals and wholesome stories. So
Yeah, go for
that
it.
would be the tradition, right? So apparently when Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 came out, a fan wrote them for a very sad reason. Because their beloved cat died, and they were like, "Hey, your game is so immersive and was such a wonderful story, and it helped me cope with all this." And Warhorse, the studio behind Kingdom Come Deliverance, went, well, bet. And what they did, they let their concept and design artist that did all the medieval drawings and logos make a little crest for the lost cat, and we're having that on the screen right now. It's German, and it reads Peony, the brave boar hunter, and they sent him this. And that blew up a bit on the Kingdom Come Deliverance Reddit, which I think is just a really sweet story.
It is.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. I love when developers and whatnot do things like that. It's always really cool to see.
And it's genuine good medieval heraldry as well.
It actually is. I talked to a buddy of mine, and it's actual, like, legit correct heraldry.
Yeah,
Except for the text. We leave out the text, that sort of thing, but apart from that, it's actually correct.
The color use is accurate, because color use was very important with medieval heraldry, because it was it could be very complicated, but it had to be recognizable at a glance in the middle of a battle, so that you knew which person to put away and which person to capture and sell for a lot of money.
Yeah. So the only thing I was actually arguing about with a friend, because now we're getting into actual heraldry, the crest only kind of breaks one rule, that's no bordering white and yellow. But yeah, seeing as the cat's the motive, that rule can be overruled, I think. The reason behind that, because it's a super interesting tidbit. Yellow was usually represented as gold, so it was mostly like brass or other cheaper yellow metals, and white usually was like just iron or silver. So you didn't want those colors next to each other, because if you had the sun falling in from the wrong place, you couldn't distinguish them. So that's the only heraldic rule that's actually kind of broken, but I think the color rules don't count for motives, and the cat would be a motive, so that thing is legit.
Yeah, so you definitely could tell that they put some effort into this. So that's always
I mean,
good.
yeah, they have been super accurate on everything. So yeah, that just makes sense, and it's just such a sweet story, and I wanted to share that.
I can't wait to dig into the second game. So I've poked around
I
the first game.
still have my second playthrough of the first at like sitting at 80% because other things happened. Monster Hunter. And yeah, no, but I'm gonna do that definitely. I'm really looking forward to the second one.
Also,
I
let's
just
go
accidentally hyped myself up for the third one that isn't even announced yet.
Oh, I really we've talked about this before. I really hope that Kingdom Come does a Witcher.
Yeah.
Like the first one was rough around the edges, but beloved. The second one got a bit more mainstream and really a lot of polish, and the third one should be the technical nuke of success. And I really hope that's the case, because it's a really cool series.
And then the fourth game that they make is going to be Hungry and Neo Tokyo fighting anime girl with lightsaber.
I have
Judging
no
by the
issue with
time
this.
period- Judging by the time period they're in, I think I know what they're building towards, and they can probably tackle it in the third one and then just say it's good. It's done. I think.
I mean, and then they can find another protagonist for another story in another
Oh,
era, maybe.
absolutely. Absolutely. All of history is open to you, and there's so many interesting time periods that barely ever get covered.
Yeah, this was a time period that I didn't really know much, or at least in the area. Like it's a time period I heard about, but from a different perspective.
Mm.
This one is like got me interested, and when we had that discussion about your potential third game, I was looking that up, and I'm like, oh my crap, this is really interesting. Like lore and stuff. So I was like, oh, this is getting me excited for all sorts of things. So, but yeah, that's an awesome place to cap off our news and our previous month. So I think it might be a good time, unless anyone has anything else, to take a quick 5-10 minute break, get hydrated, get stretching. I'm gonna walk around and go everywhere.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back and probably tackle our main topic and some of the things we're excited for. Just our normal procedure. So unless anyone has anything else, I think we should be good to go on break.
Yeah.
I'm good.
And that is why our alien overlords are going to be taking over the world in about 2.5 years, according to my calculations. Oh, hi. everybody.
Anyways, that's how I lost my medical license.
Yep, that's a classic.
Shout out to Team Fortress 2. That's another contender for some really influential games. But moving on from that topic.
Not interesting. I know that mode that you guys were playing. I'm going to completely.
Yeah,
I saw a video of it. Do you have to pay per match, or is that changed?
as for like the special rewards out of it, like I believe it's some sort of cosmetics you can get out of it. You do need to get a tour of duty ticket to get those, I believe, but you can play it for free, just
Okay.
with the regular game rewards like drops and
Because I
yeah,
saw
they
that and I was
usually
like,
just
that's super interesting. And you have to pay to
it's
play it.
yeah,
But then it was like
it's
the
weird.
video I saw was saying in the video that like some of the cosmetics are worth money, so you can actually make money off of it if you're lucky.
Yeah, the Team Fortress 2 economy is a completely is a very unique system, like an ecosystem basically, which has some really interesting dynamics that I frankly do not know enough of to explain properly. All I know is that one of the people that studied the Team Fortress and Counter-Strike economy on Steam went on to become Minister of Finance in Greece to get them out of the 2008 recession. So it's definitely some really complicated economy stuff that's happening there that is like valid study material.
It reminds me of the college courses on Eve Online's economy.
yeah,
There
yeah,
are
it's
courses
similar
on
to
that
that.
because it's like it is a sample of like a real market and like people study it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
If you want to bring up studyable occurrences, we have to bring up the World of Warcraft Blood Plague incident.
I was
Oh, yeah.
thinking of it, but I was restraining myself.
That's pretty interesting. Where some people would spread it on purpose, some people would form to
Yeah.
help. It was a
It
good
mimics
start.
real pandemic dynamics, even
Yeah.
though it wasn't even a disease. It was a bug that spread a condition around. But in the end, that's
It
all you
behaved like
need.
a disease. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've actually seen that in I forgot what game it was that they had a thing where if you played with a player that had played with a dev, it gave you like a not like a debuff, but it was like a buff on there. And
there's
it
a lot
would
of games that do that with an achievement. Like I know on Arcanist, the funny free wizard game that we played, back when that was officially published by the developers, there was an achievement that you got by defeating a developer or someone who has defeated a developer.
okay. That could be I don't think it was that game, but yeah, it was something like
No, it was a different one, I'm pretty sure.
but yeah, it was like
There's a few
playing,
games that do it, and I always think it's funny.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Usually it has a name like something like Meteor Maker or something like that.
yeah. So one small, when I say small piece of news that I forgot to mention before we continue. And I kind of wanted to mention it because it's kind of interesting. It is the Souls like of news topics.
Oh god.
And it's the actual Souls like games that are coming out. But I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I find it very interesting. And I wanted to kind of like mention it very quickly. I have a video in the background playing. It also coincides with the announcement of like the Switch 2 or the release date of the Switch 2, which is like it's in like April or something. I'm not sure. Not April.
No, the pre-order starts in
Yeah,
April.
pre-order started in April. But it was I forgot the date that comes out. Sometime in
It
later.
got delayed for the US, so I'm not sure what the pre-order date is now. I believe the full release is in June,
Yeah, it was like June 7th or something like that.
something like that.
Yeah, so it's
Early
pretty
June,
interesting.
anyway.
It's pretty interesting. I have a Switch. I got it for Unicorn Overlay, and that's basically all I ever played on it. Oh, I lied. I also played a Rise on it before I got it on PC. But I like the system. It's cool that there's another one coming out, I guess. But there's another FromSoft game that's not your traditional FromSoft game, and people were freaking out to the point where Miyazaki's like, "Hold on, we're still making regular FromSoft game." It's just he's has a couple of projects that he was working.
Yeah, because this one has kind of like a battle royale element to it, didn't it? It's like
It's
PvP,
like a
PvEVP or something like that.
yeah. So it's the Night Rain is going to be like a co-op, and this one's going to be the PvPvE side. So I don't think it's going to be one that I gravitate to, even though it is essentially, from what it looks like Bloodborne 2 at home, made by the people that made Bloodborne 2 or Legally Distinct Bloodborne. But it's kind of interesting. And it's interesting to see when developers try something different. I for one welcome it because I know there was a discussion we had where the other Elder Scrolls games have kind of bounced off of you guys. You haven't really played them or enjoyed them as much as some of us have. But the new ones, because of the style of game that there is, you guys like, hey, I might give it a chance because you like the change in it, and I think that's kind of really cool to see them try something different. Because we're aware of FromSoft can make a very good Souls-like game because they that's their thing. That style of action RPG with exploration and storytelling, the way they do it. So that's not an issue. But them trying different games is kind of cool. I hope it works out because I would like to see developers, especially developers that are successful, branch out and try other things. My always hope is that it creates jobs because okay, now they can have a second team working on something, and they got the main team working on the main one. So that's
I
always
kind
good.
of like to think that it's a good chance for them to practice some technical things as well, because the way they've been going, in my opinion, was first they were very positive about the Elden Ring multiplayer mods, the one that allows you to have seamless multiplayer, like full co-op instead of just for the bosses, basically. Then they announced Night Rain, which is almost entirely multiplayer as far as I know. It's like 1 or 3 players. Now this one, which is also entirely multiplayer, they do say that they are not going to stop making single player games, but I do hope that the more they get experience coding these multiplayer systems, the more that they will support actual co-op in their mainline games. Because I think that can be a big thing to make them, even more fun than they already are for a lot of people.
Yeah, because the multiplayer game, the multiplayer in the Souls-like games, that it's an experience. Um, it's not traditional, and
Yeah.
some people think that's part of the charm. Some people hate it. I personally am mad about it, and the seamless co-op mod is probably the most fun I've had playing a Souls-like game in co-op. Simply because of the fact that they can just play the entire game with me and not have to do this weird. Okay, you kill the boss, now you disappear, now I have to summon you, and then they could just play the entire game with me, which is
Yeah, and then everyone needs to split up and do their own story missions, and then you need to all rejoin the same person again to fight the boss. And wait a minute.
Yeah, I was about to start the exact same rant.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It works well enough, but yeah, it's definitely it's not a traditional multiplayer, and I kind of honestly I hope that they give the choice. Like you have a way to play it the classic way, and you have a way to just really go all in full co-op with 1 or more people. Probably the easiest for them is to make it balanced for 2 people, but I'd like to see the classic 1 to 4.
I mean, scaling on that hasn't really been a problem in a while. The
No.
tech for that is definitely there. Maybe not for them personally, but that's
Yeah.
definitely doable.
That's why I like the projects like these, and hopefully they can figure out what works best for them,
Yeah.
and bring that back to their mainline games.
I mean, we've had scaling in games, like for example, City of Heroes had scaling. So
Yeah. And that one had good options for the scaling as well. So
Yeah, you could switch it, make it more, make
That
So-
one still had me so like actually surprised because that was like way ahead of their time.
Hmm.
so. But yeah, and then it's pretty interesting because a couple other Souls like games, like I think that's I guess the way I can describe them. Came up the AI Limit, which is like another anime one that in the similar vein of Code Vein, but more like a story driven where you play a character instead of making one. And then Kazan Berserker, which is another one that's pretty cool. And that one is interesting because that one is a Souls game that, on top of being extremely clean and really feels really good to play, it's one of the first ones I've seen that actually has difficulty settings. You can actually choose the easy, which is an interesting point of contention for Souls games. So
Yeah.
So it's interesting that there's a resurgence in solid games that follow that similar formula. For me as a fan, I like it, especially now that FromSoft is trying different things. So that's kind of cool. I always like to see developers try different things. So
Honestly,
Absolutely.
if they go the co-op route, they should look into difficulties because yeah, playing with friends of not the same skill level is usually a thing that you have to like deal with.
surprisingly, one of the games that was like super interesting how they do it is the Ghost Recon, the new Ghost Recon.
Oh
where
yeah, that one.
you could have like one player play it like no UI, fine everything, and then the other player's playing it on easy mode because maybe they're not good at shooters. And it's kind of like you could both seamlessly play the game together, and it's
Mm.
crazy that that's a thing that you could do. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that one is wild. I've done it and it actually works. That's a really like that's an insanely intricate system that Ubisoft put in that game.
That's like a game that you could play, like, let's say you have a friend or a significant other that doesn't play shooters but wants to play a game with you. You could just go sweaty hardcore, and then they're just kind of like just more of the casual and
Mhm.
actually enjoy the game together, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So big fan of that. I hope to see more of that. I think that's really the only game that I've seen that's done that, where you can play the same game with different difficulties
Yeah,
together.
but that kind of also had to do with the whole like development history of that game
Yeah,
because they released it very much as a Division light, and every Ghost Recon fan was like, "That's not the game we want." And yeah, I think they even canned the game director over that, if I recall correctly, and then they reworked the whole game to include the system where they basically were like, "Yeah, you can play this as a tactical shooter, which the series originally was, or according to the original vision we had for the game," and those basically work pretty seamlessly with each other. So
yeah. It's really interesting. Which brings me to another thing with Ubisoft and Tencent kind of having the subsidiary being made. That's going to be interesting to see. Not necessarily a bad thing, because Tencent generally kind of, and for the most part, kind of stay out of it, just give money. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Ubisoft going forward, but definitely can't get any worse than what their reputation has been recently. So we'll see what happens. So
I mean, we
Yeah.
did have Assassin's Creed Shadows very recently.
yeah, I mean, it's Assassin's Creed it's Assassin's Creed, so it's a game
It's
that
had its
functions.
lows, though. It's had its lows. Like Shadows definitely seems to be a lot better than some of the Assassin's Creed, and definitely a lot better than a lot of their recent games.
Yes.
Which was necessary because this was kind of the one that their continued survival sort of hinged on after a series of commercial failures. And I think it's also in that light that we need to look at the whole thing with Tencent, because I'm pretty sure that the spinning off franchises into like a subsidiary thing is more an economic maneuver than really a sale or a change in anything. I
It
think
also
it's mostly
feels like
just
it
a trick.
was. I feel like it was also already planned. So regardless of how
Yeah.
They've been
successful.
negotiating for that for a while.
Yeah, regardless
Also-
of how successful Shadows is or not, it would have happened regardless. So
Yeah.
Very likely. Also, I think I've seen Tencent just investing into companies like as a purely like investor, just give
Mhm.
money, get money kind of deal. I think they also have a share in Funcom, and Funcom has still been very like pro consumer in the things they did. Like they rolled back their battle pass on Conan Exiles. They've bankrolled a few indie games I've been playing a lot, so there hasn't been any like attitude shift in the company at all. So I would.
It's important to keep in mind that like them owning shares doesn't have to mean anything, because
That's the
the only
thing.
reason they actually get a voice in what the company does is if they control a majority, or together with other shareholders control a majority. And like sometimes that's plain not possible. For example, they got shares in Larian Studios, but they got like 7%, whereas the creative director and his wife own vastly more than 50% of the shares. So in effect, they just give money and they get money out of it. They just
Yeah.
that's how it is. They invest it, they get return on investment. Nothing more than that. It's when they get a majority that some people get worried, which I get, because if if new voices get a majority in something that you used to like, there could be a change of direction that you don't like. There could be one that you do like. It's hard to predict. It's uncertain.
yeah, but I think in the gaming space, I've seen a shift away from essentially. I mean, I'll just straight up say it, China bad, because they've done some amazing games recently, and Tencent's kind of shown that they're just a decent company, for what they've done for certain places. You might not agree with certain things, like I know there was some strange censorship and like Siege, whatever, but those are like minor things for me. So
As long as they get their own separate versions to comply with their regional censorship and all, that's fine. My problem begins when they start applying that censorship outside of China, which is the same for any other country. I don't need to abide by the laws of different countries that I don't live in. Simply
yeah,
put.
but a lot of it's like really bad, like stuff like the spades and everything.
Yeah.
That's fine. But I think the gaming space has kind of seen that there are like, oh wait, there's other companies other than EA and the big AAAs that can make good games.
Oh yeah,
and there's other
absolutely.
countries that can. So that's always a good thing to see. Yeah.
Stuff like Black Myth Wukong and the Age of Mythology DLC really do show that there's a lot of potential in the Chinese developers that hasn't
Absolutely.
often been seen internationally yet. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
excited to see what else they can make.
Black Myth Wukong is one of those games where we saw the first trailer and we're like, yeah, this is a slice of life, and this is gonna not be like that, but it was. So I was happy that it was. So that's cool.
Mm.
Anyway, that's kind of the little interjection here. So we'll jump away from our driving artsy mad by adding something ad lib, because I know she doesn't like that. And let's go on to our I guess we want to go into our main topic.
Yes.
And our main topic is literally, well, we've talked about setting up games, TTRPGs. We've talked about getting ourselves players, stories, and all that, and planning everything and everything. So, what to do when like things beyond our control cause it where we can't run a game. Things what we can do, and things that can be done instead. So we're going to talk about some board games and card games that we sometimes play, maybe some experiences of what DMs have done for quick little one shots or side adventures, and some suggestions on things or systems maybe to hop on and play, because I know I have a couple. And we kind of go from there.
And of course,
Now,
some suggestions to help with scheduling so that hopefully none of this is necessary in the first place.
Absolutely, because we're going to talk about online and in person. I know last month we talked about Core, how you have an in-person game, we've kind of said, just planning ahead is always good. And, that kind of thing, and how I do the in-person at the library, and just kind of talk about that in general. So without further ado, does anyone want to volunteer to start? If not, I can jump in real quick with a quick little thing. Just
I
kind
can
of
volunteer.
Okay.
go ahead, George.
Yeah, so it's been a thing. I've been GMing for quite a while now, mainly in person for the most of that time. And I've had those sessions where it's people just suddenly couldn't make it, or there was planned absences, or people just suddenly couldn't make it, or things happen. Some of the things I like to do is I usually have either a standard board game that we can sit and play, something usually pretty quick, that we can just that I can bring along, because when you're a GM and you tend to bring along a lot of stuff with you, fitting an extra thing along on that period of time doesn't always work. Although if you're doing it kind of at a place that you normally have set up, like I had at my apartment for a while when I was attending the University of Buffalo. So like one of the things we do is like a board game that has a quest to it, like a continuing game structure, like a Zombicide or a Hero Quest kind of thing, or just a simple card game kind of stuff. Like if we're out there, like something that's easy, that's you could play in like a bar, using the old term beer and pretzels kind of thing, that like Gloom, or even kind of Boss Monster to that extent. But the other one I've always really liked to do is, as a GM, and I know this kind of sounds as extra work, is setting up kind of a one shot that you can run people through in the party. Just kind of have a folder of like rainy day stuff. I've had some instances where I've been like, hey, does anyone want to try this new system or something like that I've got, like a one shot for us, we can give this a try, is maybe something in the future. 'Cause there are a lot of people that are kind of not into that kind of stuff. If you have the party that's into that, that's always a cool thing. But the other one is kind of doing a one shot in setting, so people can still play, and always kind of try to lean it towards having less players. One of the ones that I always like to do is, particularly when I do Savage Worlds, is a lot of the solo play stuff. I will figure out a way to add people to it, and getting the how many monsters should I add per person coming into an encounter. That's taken a little bit for me to do, kind of as a GM, but I've kind of got a decent formula right now for that one. And that's kind of what I do in that scenario is, I ask my party members who are showing up, what they would like to do, and I have options. Because it just is kind of stupid to be like, oh, we all show up, we all took the time to drive out here, and because of this one person, we now can't play. And then of course there's the other, and that's if there's a mass call in, because other times we'll just go without the person. If they're down a party member, you just got to learn how to adjust. And I think that's kind of a skill that GMs need to learn how to do, is being able to adjust your game, or if not, have those backups ready.
Yeah, definitely. That's something has always been usually in the session zero setup. Like, hey, if I miss, you can go without me. Sometimes it's hard, especially if it's like, okay, this is a specific story thing that you're involved in, your character, so going without you might be difficult. So just having kind of contingencies just in case, or things that they can do to support the main plot might be helpful. It's also the danger of like putting all your eggs in one basket, which is why I've always wanted DMs to just like, okay, you got a player that's super into the story and the role play, and everybody else is fine just following and just kind of playing. But don't put everything just on that one player, even if they want to, because if they can't make it or whatever, things might end up being difficult. So try to give it like a little bit of flexibility or kind of like mixable matching between the different players. In my opinion, I mean, just depends. But yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, I think having some sort of backup game is always cool, and we'll talk about some of these systems. I know recently one of my DMs, Mega, we came up with a kind of like a dungeon, like a random dungeon. So I'm gonna give him a little bit of a shout out. So we were missing some players. We did some sort of a random dungeon that was in some sort of like a dream world. I don't want to go over too much so that spoils some stuff. Plus it's whatever, but it's kind of like one of the characters is able to kind of get us to a place where we could do some sort of training or dungeon delving. And that was really fun. So we could still use our characters. We could pull some of the things we find from the dream out so we get some reward for it. And he's kind of trying to come up with a way to make sure that we can't really like always go into it and abuse it because we're technically safe. But it allowed us to kind of play and have a good session and just go around and trigger all the trap doors. Basically, is what this. Yeah. Anyone else like to kind of jump in on the topic and maybe give a personal experience of things they've done when people have gone missing?
It's I think something that we have to keep in mind is when the game sort of like when you're all there and then you find out that's not happening, you actually need to get over the feeling of like I drove all the way here and now it's not happening. Like I've been looking forward to this, and at that point it might sometimes be hard to actually hype yourself up to do something else, but it's almost always worth it. Like once you get started with something, once you drag yourself out of that hole, you'll have fun just in the way that you were looking forward to. And if I wish I had any advice on how to do that efficiently, like how to trick yourself into getting into the right mindset for that, but I don't. Sadly, uh, mostly it comes down to just, in the wise words of Shia LaBeouf, just do it, which is not helpful advice at all. And it doesn't work for most people because it's no advice. So yeah, kind of dropped myself into dead end there, but
No, that's. I mean, it's true. It's understanding that, you know, so some people might be looking forward to the session, and not having the session might get so some people get discouraged. I know
mhm.
it happened one time where I did like a little side adventure because I wanted to try a different system for a bit, and I didn't give too much fair warning. And one of my players was very discouraged, because they're like, "I was looking forward to the session and doing these things." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. The communication is super important."
And
And I think that's core. That's what you said last month. And you mentioned it. The the communication and planning ahead of time is kind of what helps your sessions, or at least your sessions that you have in person. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean the thing that we do, because I'm playing IRL D&D hard mode because we have all people with full-time jobs. Two of those are working shift in customs, so finding a date is actually the epic adventure itself. What we got to doing, like if you don't have a like regular game, but a like planned game, which we've been playing for 6 years, the one thing you have to do is before you leave the game, set up a poll, a vote, or decide on the next date. Like,
yeah, well,
don't push
everyone is
that
still
off.
there and
Do
still
that while
thinking
you're
about
sitting
it.
together. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the one important thing when you have an IRL game that's not regular, or even if it is regular, just go like, "Hey, is everybody fine for the next session?" Does everybody have something planned? Guys, check your calendars, guys and gals, of course. And if not, when are we playing instead? Like, do that while you're still sitting together if you have an IRL game. That's the one, like, big tip I can give.
Drag them to that table and push their face onto the agenda. Right. Date now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice, and I've noticed that that's really helped my Saturday game with the library, because we talk about like days off and days that we're doing things at the table when everybody's still energetic and has the the high of playing and having fun. So that way they're less down, like we can say, oh, that was awesome. Oh, we're not gonna meet next week. Oh, that sucked. Oh, we can play board games. Oh, cool, yeah. And it's easier to get into that mindset when you have like in a good mood than if you're like driving and then suddenly last minute we're not having it. So I noticed that we always seem to have a very good kind of a good time when we don't have a full session, because my players already know ahead of time. They come in and they're like, they bring extra snacks and they're like, okay, we're laid back. He's like, okay, all right, the DM Rain's not going to kill us today, so we can actually be laid back and have fun. So jokes aside, I'm still find a way to kill them in the co-op game. But
It's not funny. Do you know how you roll for your NPCs?
I can't control it. I can't control it.
I know. Just funny.
I guess purple die is the good die.
I mean, it's not you that's trying to kill us. It's your dice, Rain. That's the thing.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
I will blame your dice.
Thanks for the same. So,
no, yeah, the thing is, if you don't get a full session together, you can talk about what you want to do, because we'll get into this later. There's a lot of things you can do with a like TTRPG inclined group that are still super fun, but people might like or not like certain things or certain other activities or other games, more or less. So it helps when you have the people there that will be there next time. If you don't have a full session for your campaign, then you can talk what you're gonna do else, and that way you have people excited for the thing that's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure Frax and Core would love to have a session discussing how much that they value the partnership with Lucretia and her patronage. But yeah, that's something that's kind of cool, is using that time to discuss. One of the things that I did too is we were going to be missing a player for a couple weeks because he was going to like a school thing. So he was going to be gone for an entire month. So I'm like, you know what? Your players are waiting for something to happen. So why not shift the focus of the story to one of the NPCs who they asked to do something for them? And it goes, well, what if that NPC, in getting the item you want, hired a team of professionals to do so? Let's make all this and let's play a mini campaign for that month. And we ended up doing that, and it was absolutely hilarious. They basically made like alts that they wanted to try, and just they were like super wild. The mage who is scared to get into combat because he's all about protecting himself made like this bloodthirsty monk assassin who just goes and like just does crazy stuff. So they were like playing completely different characters and getting into it, and it was a lot of fun. And of course, once they finished the mission, then the player came back. They actually were able to meet their party and hand off the information, and then that actually helped their main party get some stuff. And I actually gave them the remaining XP that they needed to level. So then they also got the opportunity that they did a bunch of characters and their main characters level. So it was a lot of fun. So I doing like side adventures with characters within the universe, or even flashbacks too could work. You can go back and be like, hey, let's talk about a thing, though there might not be that sense of danger because you can't really die in a flashback. Unless you want to do some sort of time jumping walkie thing, but I died, but I lived.
I mean, it worked for Alex, didn't it?
Yeah. And for Lena.
Wait,
Well, Melina legitimately. Alex, he had an item that let him time jump around, so that was kind of convenient.
I was focused on the I died but I lived part.
oh, okay. I thought the time parts. I was confused, but yeah, she go better. It's fine.
Yeah, there's no side effects whatsoever.
No, not at all. The voices tell me that it's fine.
Yeah, also her and Scary now only talking in Necro when they want to have a private conversation. That's also not ominous at all.
Nah.
Now, that being said, I would like to go into, like, I know Jordan, you mentioned a couple of the games that you
I
play,
got
like
one. I
board
got
games.
one more point to help with scheduling.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Because we've been talking about like if you go plan game, but if you have a regular game, it's always on the same day and date and hour. It is important that you keep to that you make that consistent, so that people don't start going like planning backups or thinking of things that rather do instead of like, oh, I don't know if it's going to happen this week, because that's the death of a game, like straight up. Same like you can miss a game every now and then because like life will happen. That's just a thing. But I think a general rule of thumb is like if it doesn't happen 3 weeks or 3 like dates in a row, it probably won't happen again. So consistency really is key there. Also uh to just keep people hyped for what's gonna happen, Uncertainty just means that they lose investment, and you don't want that. And
Yeah, I think
investment means that they will definitely remember the time and date and be there and bring snacks.
Yeah. Also, just because before we get into like alternate planning, a thing that's really useful, especially in the trying weeks when different places around the world change daylight savings time on different weeks
Yeah.
in like 4 different zones. There's this neat little thing that allows you, if you play online, to get a Unity timestamp for Discord. So you can just post in your channel or server, hey, this is the exact point in time where we're playing. And this timestamp will adjust for each person's local time, including daylight savings and other shenanigans.
Yeah.
So
it's called
that's a
hammer
really,
time.
yeah. What's it called? Sorry.
Hammer time.
No, okay.
That's a site you use for it. It's a website. You just put in the time and date, and then it gives you several options for a timestamp that accounts for time zones. Really useful tool.
Yeah, and then you will basically go, hey, next session is here, and then it shows the date and time adjusted for your current time zone and if it's daylight savings or not. Because yeah, we've had people showing up an hour early or late and going, well, shit, we changed and you didn't, or you changed and we didn't, and so that's a really important part. Also, it's nice to just have that timestamp in, so you don't have to make people convert their own timestamps. Because I don't know when what EST is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it's
-6.
usually -6, except the past 4 weeks it was -7 or -5. I don't remember.
-5. I don't.
That's the one. So this is why you need to timestamp.
Yeah, because our game. I mean, you guys are all in Europe. It's a little easier because since you guys are in the same-ish area in terms of time zone wise, it's not like a huge difference. But it would be
That was the
nuts
same
if
time
it was
zone.
like, it would be crazy if like I was East Coast and I had you guys and then I had someone in California. That would be like, whoa, okay.
I
3
did
hours
play the game before where I had 2 people in my time zone. I had 3 more people on the US East Coast, And then I have 3 people in Southeast Asia.
I can beat that, and I would say actually too. Our wildest game was 2 people in CET 0, 1 person CET -1, 1 person Central US, 1 person Taiwan, and 2 people New Zealand. That was wild.
Yeah. The time you will find is probably on a Sunday.
Yes, it actually was.
Yeah, because that's the only day that everyone guaranteed is a day off and like the willingness to go do something at a crazy hour.
And no matter what you do, 1 person is gonna play till 3 a.m.
Yeah, basically. Someone will have to make the sacrifice.
And that's a sacrifice.
The others are willing to make, yes.
The others are
Yeah.
willing to make. Many of you will suffer, but that's a sacrifice that we're willing to make. But yeah, that's definitely the scheduling thing. The communication is key. And I think a lot of people often don't want to say if they're gonna miss or are not sure because they don't want to like discourage, or they don't want to make it seem like they're at fault or something. And sometimes it's just easier just to say it.
Mm.
So, but I mean, I
think
don't see
the
that.
worst thing you can do is say that you can't. Is not say that you can't make it, and then just be busy somewhere else and have your party sees that. Like that's a great way to get arguments.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's ever really happened in any of my groups.
No. Yeah, and I mean, there are times where you're gonna wake up or you're gonna get to where it's session time and you just don't feel good, and that'll happen from
Yeah.
time to time, and that's okay. It's just as
Yeah,
long as it's
sometimes.
communicated. So
Yeah, sometimes shit is just like that.
now, that being said, I do want to talk about some of the things that we've done. Jordan, I know you mentioned a couple games that you played, a couple card games, and you want to kind of go into some minor detail about those games or your go-tos.
Okay. Well, let's see. There's one. There's a couple in there. So if I know that I'm, it's a decently consistent group of people in terms of, where we're playing. Because I played a couple different places. So, when we were doing it at my apartment, basically, it was we would have the original Hero Quest. And that one is kind of if no one ever played that one, that was a Milton Bradley did a kind of a link up a long time ago with Games Workshop and made a more user-friendly version of Warhammer Quest aimed at children. But since it's become kind of a cult classic following for board games that just got re-released by Hasbro. And that was one that I still had my original copy at the time, and that was one that we would play as a backup when people weren't there. So you get like a character sheet in that you actually have equipment that builds up for, and you do basic, very very simple dungeon crawling. The dice are D6s that are custom for the game. And another one that we've done later was Zombicide, the medieval one, which I believe is Black Plague. And but if I'm going to a different game store or someone's house or stuff like that, the ones that I like to bring are something that's more compact, that we can just pull out, and it's not going to last us more than an hour or 2 or 3. And that ones are usually we tend to go with Gloom. That's one of my personal favorites. If you haven't played that one, that one's kind of more of a story-driven one. And the goal is to make you have a family, and your goal is to make as many terrible things happen to that family member before they die, and that's how you score points. And then, of course, there's players can counter this by making good things happen to members of your family. So it's kind of it's a funny game if you're into depressing goth stuff. And then another one that we kind of just standardly play is is Carcassonne. My friend has a travel version of that one, and we could always bring that one out and play that one. Or Boss Monster is another really fun one. That one's your the head of a dungeon, and you build your dungeon up to kill heroes that try to enter your dungeon and loot it. But those are two. Those are some of my go-tos. If I'm not doing a one-shot, of course.
I do like Carcassonne. I've played that one before. It's a fun game. It's fairly simple, but you can do a lot with it.
Oh yeah, and it's got a nice strategic element to it, and we
Yeah.
definitely have some of the expansions for it, which of course adds more shenanigans. And it's definitely varied by who's playing with it, because some of my friends are more strategically inclined and trying to win, and then one of my friends is just a chaos muppet and just places stuff all over the damn place. And it's just like those games, like the games where it's everyone trying to win. I think we have I hold the record at like 200 and something points gained, which is pretty hard, particularly if you're
Holy
doing it
hell.
with 4 people. And when my Chaos Muppet friend plays, I think the highest score we've had is like 64. So it just shows you the difference there.
Oh my god.
I think it's really funny because a lot of those games you mentioned I've had on the radar for a while. Because I think it's nice if you have like more of the like kinda cooperative TTRPG out of a box like games like the Zombicide Black Plague.
Mhm.
And things like that, because the thing is, if you have a hankering for a TTRPG session, Carcassonne might not scratch that itch for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But we've been getting into either we want. So if I'm gonna continue where you're done, sorry, then I'm gonna lead
No,
over into my
I'll
favorites.
I'll just throw one more out there that I've done with people. Because I've also done ones where I have miniatures, of course, at my place, and one of the ones I've done too is doing the cooperative element, because that's what we've come together to do. It's a game called Rangers of the Shadow Deep, which is kind of a miniature combat game based off a game called Frostgrave. But it's instead of us going at each other and trying to kill each other, we're actually working together as a party on a miniature tabletop game with monsters that act and attack random based on a matrix. I think it's the best way to put it. An AI, but basically based on dice tables. And it's actually really, really fun, and we've had a lot of good kicks out of that one, even replaying some of the same adventures over again.
Oh, and it uses miniatures? That's cool.
Yes, yeah, it's like if you ever played Frostgrave or Mordheim in that, it would be like that game, but instead of you fighting each other, you're working together.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, because I think that's actually one of the biggest things. Like sometimes when you're coming together to play a TTRPG, you're coming to be cooperative. So then all of a sudden playing a competitive game could be a big shift. So having a game where you're working together and that's so yeah, that's cool. I like it. Core, I believe you wanted to pick off where Jordan was leaving off with something else.
Yeah, yeah, because we've had a lot of like sessions where some people didn't have time because of the scheduling parts, and then we usually run around trying to find games that we're itching for. And yeah, there's dungeon crawly games or cooperative games, and there's a couple that we've been playing a lot. And let me show you some of those we have lying around. Considering TTRPGs out of a box, an old one that's published by Fantasy Flight is Arkham Horror, which is also kind of a really elaborate setup. But if you have like most of your party, but just don't want to continue with the main story, but want some, it plays like a TTRPG out of the box. Basically, you have a character and the city of Arkham overrun by eldritch horrors. So you're basically investigating them and have skill check and combat kind of like encounters in there, and it runs for a couple hours, so it will fill up your evening nicely. And it comes with a lot of expansions and the actual Lovecraft lore, so you can find Cthulhu while the King in Yellow is trying to have a play done in your town, which you also can't have. And it's a really fun game, and playing it with the TTRPG folks, we tended to like make up stupid stories while playing, which then gives a little bit of that TTRPG itch. We had one fight where we actually fought and defeat Cthulhu, which is super rare. And the
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that one's a really bad one to actually fight. We also got steamrolled by Cthulhu in like 20 minutes. That also happens a lot. But yeah, that's a really fun one. And the Arkham Horror series has a lot of games. Like Arkham Horror is a full RPG out of a box, basically, or TTRPG out of a box. So it has a really elaborate setup and a lot of moving parts, and it's actually pretty difficult. The funniest thing was how I explain how elaborate Arkham Horror is. I can tell the story from when we bought a new dining room table. Because wife and me were gonna buy a new dining room table, and then we went into a like furniture store, and they were like, "Hey, we're looking for a dining room table, but it should be a big one, like a 3 feet wide, sitting 6 people, and maybe if you could extend it for 8." And they were asking like, "Hey, yeah, how big's your household?" "Yeah, but with 2 of us." And then the vendor looked very questioning, and then I just pulled up my cell phone where I had a setup for the board game up, and yeah, we need it for this. And then she was like, "Okay, I'll have this big table," and then she led us to the biggest table in the room. So yeah, that's how big the setup is, but it's actually a really fun game. And the series has a few entries that are of different complexity levels. Arkham Horror is the big one.
Okay.
Then you have Mountains of Madness, which is a bit less involved, but still very much the same vein. And if you want the easiest one, which I love dearly, is Elder Sign, which is basically Lovecraft Yahtzee. And that's a really fun one. It's basically you're at a museum researching a cult trying to raise an old god. And basically something happens in this room, and if you don't roll a straight, then your group gets taking a dice away. So, but it's basically, yeah, roll a straight, roll 2 pairs, or things happen, bad things happen, and it's tactical because you have a time limit on things. It's a really fun game to play, but it's also for smaller groups. That makes sense from like 2 to 6 players. With Arkham Horror, I would go for 4 at least.
Okay.
But those have been. Yeah, those have very much been staples. And we've also put up like proper playlists for the Eldritch Horror and make it a bit atmospheric, and then you can scratch the TTRPG itch without someone having to prepare a whole session, which is nice. Then if we go into more like we're kind of here to have fun kind of times. Of course, Cards Against Humanity is always a thing that my group has also played a lot. And my big Cards Against Humanity box has like 10 to 15 cards with TTRPG campaign specific bullshit on it, which is also always fun.
I remember we actually got to play it with Corey, and it was great.
That one I could quite understand.
Yeah, you'll have to
when
repeat
we played Cards Against Humanity with Corey, that was
Oh yeah, that was hilarious.
so definitely a lot of fun. It's always a go-to. I have a couple that I would like to bring up that we do at the library.
Yeah, sure. You take over, then I have another like vein of games, but I'm gonna look up some images for that. So yeah, you take over for now.
So at the library, when we don't have session, my one friend actually bought a few board games for us. One of them that we played was, I believe it was called Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, which is supposed to be like it's like a an offshoot of like Betrayal at the Haunted Manor or something like that, like another game.
Betrayal at House on the Hill. That's one of my
Betrayal at
favorites.
House on the Hill. Yes, that one. And we've played this one a bit, obviously because Baldur's Gate, so it does have the TTRPG, tie. So a lot of the items are, items that you can find in game. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, you start off, you pick a character, and they're different classes. They have like a special ability, and you start off basically with you're in a tavern, and then there's doors. When you go out the door, depending on what color door is the tile that you pick. So if you go from one door and it's like an indoor tile, you pick an indoor tile, you flip it, and then you see what it is, and then you deal with that tile. Or if you go to a building, it's a building tile. And there's like different things. You can go to like Ambush Alley where you get attacked, and then it's gonna be you pick the card Ambush Alley, and it's like, okay, you're attacked, this is what happens, roll a specific stat, and depending on your result, you either like take damage or you avoid consequence, or you get some sort of a boon. Maybe you steal something from them. So it's pretty cool. And as you're going through the map, you're uncovering it. And as you uncover what are called omens, these things are kind of like bad things, but they give you like a kind of a benefit. Just to kind of give you an example, you can get the like I think it's either the hand or eye of Vecna is one of them. So yeah, you can get like really crazy things. Once enough of them are picked out, every time you get an omen, you have to roll a dice for the number of omens picked. And once you get I think it's like 5, then you start.
It's actually based on it's you roll dice, and then if it's your dice roll is higher than the amount of omens that are on the board, you keep going. That's the haunted house one basically is it's much similar to what Rain is talking about, except you build a mansion that you're in, and of course there's a way to get upstairs, like stairwells or an elevator shaft or that, and then there's a basement. And once you get this certain amount of omens, then the haunt or the actual mission begins. And with the horror game, it's like someone is a werewolf, or Dracula's in the house, or aliens are trying to take your brains. Or my favorite one we did was one of the players is, and it's always one of the players is the bad guy, and then all the other players are working against them. And my favorite was in the horror game, the player who is the antagonist believes he is Caesar, but he's actually an escaped mental patient, and all the other mental patients are his legionnaires, and he believes that you are the members of Parliament that are trying to kill him. So he's trying to kill you, and the mansion can be of any size when the haunt begins. Sometimes it's very big, sometimes it's very small. The very small one games tend to go badly, particularly if you get the werewolf one. But it's a pretty fun game. I'll give it back to you there, Rain.
Yeah. So it's very similar. The Baldur's Gate one is very similar, except for the Baldur's Gate one, there's a lot of cooperative haunts. So for example, because the way the haunts work, just like you said, when you trigger the haunt you get is based off the item that you've picked up, and like something else, and then you go through a book and you find the chart that tells you what the haunt is.
It's the room that you were in.
Yeah, the room that you're in plus the item that you picked, and then that specifies the kind of haunt that you get. And one of the fun ones we had was like mind flayers, like the Illithys were attacking. So there's like mind flayers, and so they're like little tokens on the board, and we have to like gather certain items. So we have to go around and find these items and then roll to pick them up and not be influenced by the mind flayers, and then kind of it's nuts. It's a lot of fun. And one of the major points too is before the haunt, you can't die. So even if you like take damage or whatever, you just lower your stats, because the way it works when you take damage, rather than losing HP pool, you lose either a physical or a mental stat. And there's 4 stats for the Baldur's Gate one, and I think it's the same with the mansion. So there's like strength and dex, and then there's like intelligence and like charisma or something. So the more you like F up, the lower your stats are, and the stats determine how many dice you roll. So yeah, and the dice are different. The dice have 2 of each, a blank, a 1, and a 2. So the dice pools. It's like if you roll 4 plus, you succeed. And you're like, well, I'm gonna roll strength, but I got beat up a bunch, so I only have 2 strengths. I'm only rolling 2 dice. Or the barbarian goes, and I'm like, well, I have 8 strength. I'm rolling 8. So it's, and then you can get items that say you can sacrifice this and get extra dice and whatever. So it's a lot of fun. And it's kind of almost like it's pretty random because you pull the card for where you're going to next randomly, and then it just builds the city around what you're playing. And yes, the haunt can happen very early, where it's like, okay, like this minotaur creature wants to attack the temple, and it's like, oh, but he's like 2 tiles away because we triggered it early. I guess we lose. Or oh, he's in the sewers, and it's going to take him like 12 turns to get to us. We're probably going to win this. So it's a lot of fun. So that's one of the ones I really enjoy, and I like the Baldur's Gate one because it has a lot more like tabletop themes. Your characters have like abilities like flurry of blows and magic missile and all this kind of things. And a lot of the haunts are cooperative, whereas the Haunted Hill, most of them there's like someone gets haunted or messed up, and then the rest of you are trying to survive that person or defeat them. So trying to find the other one that I had. Okay, another one that I actually bought is called Sector, or Escape from Sector, or Escape from the Black Sector. That one's a lot of fun. I've posted up what it looks like there. It is definitely like a very 80s aliens inspired game. And it's essentially you pick a character which has certain stats, and then you're woken from or released from jail in Bethesda fashion, and you have to get to your ship and escape. So you are like, there's like a scientist, and the engineer, whatever. So, and then there's a bunch of cards that you pick that are certain acts, and you flip the card, and the card presents whatever the that chapter's event is. And it could be something like, okay, a bunch of security robots are attacking you, so now you go into like a combat thing. Or hey, there's like automated turrets, and you have to turn it, and you have to shut them off and sneak by them and whatnot. So it's almost like in a lot of the games where you kind of like do events, and it's a lot of fun. I think one of my favorite parts is the HP pool is literally like this lined graph paper that they give you in the game, and you put a dot at your HP, and then when you take damage, you move over to the next set, and you put a dot where your HP is, and then by the time you get to the end, it looks like a heartbeat. So it looks like it's going up and down, up and down. So it looks like, and then until it flatlines on the bottom and your character's dead. If they die. So it's a lot of fun, and it's more luck based than strategy, but there is still a little bit of strategy. Obviously, you get certain people that do certain things because they have better rolls or whatnot. And it has a lot of expansions, and the gameplay and setup, or you can finish a game like in an hour. But everything is available right there. And the art style was great. So it's a lot of fun, and a lot of the scenarios are kind of like throwbacks to like the Alien movies or a lot of those like horror movies. So it's really cool to see. There's some System Shock references and all sorts of things in there as well. So that one, I absolutely love that one. That's a new one. We actually only played it once, and we loved it. It was a lot of fun. So you get weapons, and the weapons have all sorts of like, hey, I got a minigun, so I can roll this amount of dice when I attack. But if I roll this um dice face because there's like ammo dice. If I roll this, it gets jammed. Whereas the other gun is like doesn't when it rolls that instead it does extra damage. So it's like every single gun is different, and you're like exchanging things, and it's a lot of fun. So that's definitely one that if you're a big fan of like the Aliens movies, for example, this is an easy pickup. And it's pretty cheap. I think it's like $30 and get the whole game. I mean, the expansions are like $20. I might be off on the pricing, but that's kind of how much it would be costing. And then my final one is one that Artsy would know, and that's Sentinels of the Multiverse. Jordan, have you played that? I remember I mentioned.
I have not played Sentinels of the Universe. I know someone who did, but I have not directly played it.
So there is a video game version, but we also have the card version.
I haven't played. I think he played the card game. That was the one I was fully aware of before even the video game whatsoever. You're the one who actually brought me to the attention of the video game.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's basically you pick a superhero and you get their predetermined deck. Then you choose the villain you want to fight, and then you choose an environment. And then the way it works is the villain deck flips its first card. It's a lot of the villain decks have like setups. So like a villain deck might be like draw X cards, draw cards until you have X amount of like robots on the field, and then shuffle the deck and then start play or whatever. So they flip a deck, flip a card every turn, and they do whatever the mechanic is on the card. You play that out, and then it becomes the player's turn, and it's broken into the phase, like the beginning of the turn. You play a card, then you use a power. So every hero has a power that they have on their card, but you can also get items that give you powers. Because some certain, like for example, the one character I love playing is the Batman adjacent character who she's like a millionaire and her superpower is money. So essentially, she just has like batarangs or like whatever they're called for her. And she has a ton of equipment, and so she has like different things that she can do. Like she has a smoke bombs that deal damage and reduce the damage that the villain does, or like batarangs she throws that do a lot of damage, or she could go stealth and reduce the damage she takes. And depending on the villain that you fight, some villains are just like one big super monster, or there's like one villain that's literally just summoning a bunch of like henchmen, and you're fighting off a bunch of smaller henchmen with like lesser HP pools, trying to get to the villain. And many of the villains have unique like means of damaging them. Some of them can't be damaged directly. Sometimes you have to like, kill a certain amount of villains, and then they flip. Like one of the villains, well, she has her minions out, she's basically giving orders, but then when you like take out her minions, she gets upset, and then she's like, okay, fine, I'll do it myself. And then her whole mechanic switches until she does a certain amount of thing, and she might switch back and whatnot. So it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of synergies between the heroes. And it's a quick, easy setup. The games last like 15 minutes to half an hour. Some can last longer depending on what's going on. And then every environment itself also has certain things. Like you can have like an environment which you flip a card and it's an earthquake and everybody takes damage, or you flip it and it's like, oh, the police have come to help you out, so they'll like attack the lowest health villain or something. So and there's like really interesting interactions. So it's a boatload of fun. I really like it. And there's a video game version, which is pretty cool, and it has a lot of bots for extra heroes and villains. So it's it's a good pickup. The only problem is that the way they do DLC, I'm not a fan of. They have a sizable amount of DLC, and it's fine because it's affordably priced. But if someone doesn't have the DLC, rather than saying, "Oh, you could use it," or "Hey, they can use it," if you don't have the DLC and everyone else has, no one can use that DLC, and it kind of sucks. But besides that, it's fairly decent. So, but yep, I've shilled the games that I've played at the library. Those are ones that I love to play when they don't have a session. I believe Corey, you said you had something lined up.
Yeah, I have two more very narrative focused games. Like if you really don't want to get into, because let's say you missed a very like story heavy session and you were like, oh no, I was really looking forward to like on table roleplay. Then there's alternatives you can play. There's a really cool game that's called Fiasco, which is basically, I think it was made out of basically a writing room exercise, like how actual series writers set up a writing room for their stories and their plots they want to have. And basically, Fiasco is a game that sprung from that, with the only caveat that something is gonna go horribly wrong, and you're just a couple of characters fighting through shit hitting the fan. Excuse my language.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I actually really want to play it, and apparently it's on Roll20. So even if you have an online group, it's pretty affordable. And basically, you set up a kind of character map. Yeah, my character is this. He has those traits. He has a relationship to everyone, which you can draw from a pile or make up yourself. Like, oh yeah, we were friends to enemies relationship, or yeah, no, we have been enemies, or this person was paid to kill me. And depending, there's different scenarios. Like I think there was a very famous like 70s nightclub scenario where there breaks out a fire then, and you have to deal with that. While there's like shady backroom deals happening. That was an episode I saw played. And it has different like modules for different things you can have. And it has little expansion packs. I read about one really fun one that's just geese. Because geese make everything worse. And yeah, basically this is completely narrative. I think you roll a total of 6 dice, which just give the degree of fuck up. And the thing is, it's completely like negotiative or communal storytelling wise. You just go like, yeah, my character would try this, and you don't roll dice, you just talk it out. You need a specific kind of people for that. But if you have a session falling through that was very like story heavy and people want to get into character roleplay, this game is a great way to scratch that itch. Yeah, I think I. Yeah, and I do.
Character is like a.
Yeah, and I do have another one that's a really fun one.
I love that one.
Yeah, it's called A Dark Overlord, and basically what the game is. In this case, you have one person that has to switch out to a kind of DMing duty because they play the Dark Overlord. And all the other players are minions, mostly played as goblins, that go up to the Dark Overlord and have to confess a fuck up. That's the whole plot. Basically, you get hand cards with things you can throw into your argument. Basically, what you're trying to do is blame the other players. Because
Last
at the
man
end
standing wins.
Yeah. And basically the Dark Overlord smites people that don't have a good enough excuse for their fuck up.
Yeah, it's like yap yourself out of it by whatever lies of arguments you can make up, because it's all made up. And be the last person standing. It's incredibly funny.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, and this one also has a version on Tabletop Simulator in the workshop, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that would also be a thing we could maybe play on the ATH at some point.
Absolutely. It's simple enough to quickly do a few rounds.
Yeah.
And especially with people that are used to roleplay, it can be really funny.
Yeah, and that's the two narrative ones, and then I have another one that's just super stupid and fun. Like if you just want to roll dice and be a shitter. It's Epic Spell Wars of the
Yes.
Battle Wizards, Duels
Oh
at
my
Monskull's Fire.
I have
It's a
I've,
incredibly luck-based, kinda deck building, kinda not game. It's basically you have a bunch of wizards on a volcano that throw spells at each other. And it has stupid funny artwork for the spells, and you basically combine different cards to make spells.
And then they,
And
they
the
all
fu-
have like a part of the spell name, so you get you can see it on screen.
which one is that one?
That's Hagatha
Yeah.
the Heifer Krassazorian Godstorm. And basically, yeah, you can play different spells that have different effects, and some combos in this game are straight up broken. But since you're drawing your cards at random, nobody cares. Like the thing is, it's basically people against each other. But that game is so incredibly luck-based. I've never seen anybody salty because
Yeah, no.
it's just bullshit, and it has funny spell names, and you can like shout those spell names out and have fun and
Yeah.
just roll dice and be stupid. And the funny thing is, it scales really well with player numbers. Like, no matter if you have 2 or 6 people, 20, 25 minutes, the game is over. Because it has mechanics where where a spell deals more damage around the table. Like, the first one takes 2 damage, the second takes 4 damage. So basically, the more players, the faster you wipe the board. So it's actually really cleverly balanced to keep the game times consistent, no matter if you play with 2 or 6 people.
Mhm.
And that one is a really, really fun game. Can highly recommend if you just wanna, yeah, as I said, roll dice and be a shitter.
Yeah, and the art is so good. It's
The art is amazing.
Yeah.
the wizards you can. Oh my god, they're so good. So yeah, I'm going to admit that I might be guilty of adding some of these characters in my homebrew setting somewhere on mountains and volcanoes somewhere. Just as kind of like haha for me. But I think seeing that Core has played it, he might recognize when he does see some of them. He'll be like, oh my
I've played it too.
Wait. If you have Pista the Brewing Wizard, there Scary will lose her shit. Just saying. No, it's a really, really fun, quick game that can actually save the mood of the day if you whip that out and go like, let's be stupid.
I do have an NPC in mind that could use being targeted by some incredibly stupid spells.
you
So that
you
being
just
said-
want to use your spell guard.
Name no NPC. I want to use these on Lucy.
Oh, that way around. Okay.
That reminds me of an old card game me and my friends used to play. That was a joke, kind of raunchy card game back in the early 2000s. That was produced randomly by White Wolf Studios, and because was White Wolf Studios at the time, it had to be something and the something. And this one is a game called Pimp the Backhanding.
Oh
And
my
it was
God.
basically exactly what you think it is. And the characters were amazing. It was basically using your abilities to get a stable of prostitutes. Each one has a different point value, and the person with the most points at the end of 3 turns wins.
What the hell?
Oh my god! I'll have to send it to you guys at some point in time. But it was just like there was equipment that you could like put on, and some of the equipment was like special towards certain pimps that you could get for running your stuff, and you had to defend your stable when you get them. It was madness, but it was also so freaking funny at the time, particularly for early 20 something year old college students back in the early aughts.
Oh, that sounds very.
Oh, wait, I have one for that. So I think everybody knows Kin, right? Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
sir.
It got very silent. Okay. Yeah, I have another game that we've played in my tabletop group a bunch. So everybody knows Munchkin, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Name wise, yeah.
Yeah, so basically it's a game where you kick down doors and kill monsters. And from the same game company, they made a game that's called She Geek. And it's basically Munchkin, the college edition. Basically, you're playing a bunch of people living together, like rooming as roomies, and you basically put out the deck just as in Munchkin. But the decks are super stupid. Let me grab a few sample cards. Yeah, basically you're laying out a deck where you can get slack points, is what the basically game winning condition is called. You can find alcohol, weed. You can have funny activities with your roomies that, depending on how you roll, were better or worse. And yeah, it's a really fun game. And it's just insanely stupid. Basically, you then have people coming into your room like, there's an action card that goes like, oh no, your parents come around, destroy all alcohol and drug cards. And stuff like that. And it's just, yeah, it's like College Roomies, the Chaos game. And it's a really fun one.
That looks pretty. That looks pretty cool. The art.
Yeah. It has the
Okay.
same humor as Munchkin, but it's just like, yeah, some people's boarding in a apartment off campus and doing shit.
The White Russian. Empire. Okay. Well, that's pretty good. So let's take a quick little break here. And we'll kind of get back on topic after we get the break to finish up and go over some last things we want to go over. Maybe some shout outs, things that we have planned, and all that, and go from there. And maybe if we miss anything, we'll kind of bring it back up after the break. That way we can all stretch our legs and get some hydration. Except for Frax, I'm sure you've been hydrated enough. So
No, I lied.
I don't know. So let's take a quick 10 minute, and we'll be right back. So that's why my plan to take over the world would actually make sense. And I just need to make sure you guys are backing me up on this.
Yeah, I can
Oh,
see this. I'm down. I like
It's
the bit
live,
about the
we're live.
cheesecake.
oh,
What? Oh shit!
Sorry.
The Bomberham
yeah,
forest.
we're just joking. It was a joke. We were talking about- All right, so we're back. So we're gonna go over one more, I believe, game, and then we're gonna try to kind of talk about what we're excited for the month, and then we'll probably wrap it up and call it a nerdcast. So, without further ado, take it away, whoever's talking about our final topic or our final game.
Yeah, that'll be me. So a thing I've been stumbling over a lot is if you kind of want to do a TTRPG but are not prepped for your campaign or have people missing, there's this great itch.io site by I think it's Grant Howitt. It's gshowitt.itch.io, and he makes a lot of one-sheet TTRPGs. It's like one sheet of rules, some weird little TTRPG, and they're usually made in a way that you can just bullshit the story ahead as DM, and they're really funny and they're a nice one evening kind of thing, and they're really really funny games. Like for example, there's one that's called The Orc Pope's Dead. Terrible news, the Pope is dead.
What?
Want to be the new Pope? Or there's things like Crash Pandas, which is basically illegal street racing but with raccoons
I love that.
as a play
Yes.
on Trash Pandas.
That's awesome.
And there's a lot of super simple RPGs that are one page of rules with funny illustrations. There's Crash Pandas. And
Didn't the Critical Role people play one of these?
yeah. It has super wonky and wacky rules. Like for example, I think the raccoons in Crash Pandas have rotundity as a stat, like how round your raccoon is, and it's really super funny, super stupid RPGs with low stakes that you can make as funny or as serious as you want. And if you want to make an evening like with an hour prep or so, where you just go, yeah, we're gonna do this, and if there's time left after we wrap up, we play a round of Dark Overlord or something. You can do that, and it's a great way to fill out the evening if you don't have time to prep.
I didn't think rotundity would be a word that I'd hear on the podcast. But it'd be real. You can just like get a chart and roll randomly, and then that's the game.
I think there's one in there that's just a whole adventure system based on roll tables, I think.
Oh, I played that one. It's called D&D.
No,
Sad
yeah, no,
vampire
literally the
friend.
third one, everything is tables.
I
Wait,
just
like-
saw
Every part of a TTRPG was a random roll table.
Okay, I thought for a second that you meant that you actually like played like sentient tables as well.
Listen, I would not be surprised if that was somewhere in there.
Honestly, that would be funny.
Maybe
I
we
I
can-
know
we
the
can
exact.
test.
They know the perfect soundtrack for that session as well. Is that
Is
what
it
System
the
of a Down song?
System of a
Except
Down
they
song with
replaced
the
all the
synths?
words with table.
Yeah. That's the song I was waiting to see you to play.
Yeah.
Oh my
Anyway,
god.
my unhinged comments aside.
That is the thing. This is a nice little like, well, we're gonna just play something randomly, so here we go.
There's a lot of things on that too. Like, damn. Horse Around the House. A perfectly normal American sitcom where a live untrained horse is presented every shot. What?
Yeah, these are super goofy and super wacky, and yeah.
How the fuck do you
Okay.
think of that?
I'm
Yeah, no,
so
that's the magic about his games. Also, look, he has Orkborg, a conversion from Orkborg. So yeah, I would be down for a lot of those.
Yeah.
I think he also did Bork Bork, which was just the Mork Bork but your dogs.
Oh, nice.
Oh my god.
That's not here, but might be possible. He also has a Patreon. I don't know if there's some exclusive games on there, and he has a couple ones on there that are paid games that have like a proper game system behind them.
There was
But
a few
yeah,
paid games in this list, so I think they might just
Yeah,
all be here.
yeah, that's what I'm guessing. I mean, Goblin Quest, a tabletop RPG of fatal incompetence, sounds like what happens before you end up in 8 Arc Overlord.
That sounds just like Tuesday.
I would love to have a counter argument. I don't.
It's the emo of like you raise your finger and then you just like stop and then your finger quits pointing. Okay. All right. These are fantastic. I love these.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
There's a goat. I can't even read it, but I just see a goat.
Oh, wait. You mean this one? Wait.
The goat crashes. If you're quick
No,
enough,
no,
you can
no.
eat all the knaves before anyone notices you're a farm animal.
You mean this emote, right?
Oh
Yeah,
that
that's
is-
the one.
yeah.
Yep.
Of course you have.
And of course I have it because it's a good meme.
And because you need plenty with me around.
That's not only like you, that's everyone.
Good.
So-
Yeah. But that's why I like being here.
No.
Joys. So, that being said, let's go on to what we're excited for and kind of like what we're planning for the next month. Kind of to talk about a few things. And I have some news to bring up too because we have some plans for next month's podcast. It should be pretty fun.
I'm pretty excited for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me just start off with that real quick. So next month's podcast, number one, it might not be on the first Saturday because I actually do have to do a civil service, like an exam that Saturday, which might take time and I might not get out until late, so I might move it to another. So it depends. If they can make it on that day, I'll make it on that day. If they can't, I'll put it to the week after. We'll definitely update ahead of time so that you guys are aware. So I'll find out probably before the end of next month. But next month's podcast should be pretty fun. I plan on getting some of the from the library, some staff, and just have kind of like a roundtable discussion where we just kind of bring a couple chairs into the office and have you chuckle fucks on a speaker on a laptop or a computer, and we just discuss and break down nerd culture, the word nerd, and how libraries and that kind of lifestyle or just identity has evolved over the years. And
Ma'am,
some of
sir, I can give you a very quick definition if you would just look at your dear employee who is hosting this.
okay. Where's Cedric? I can give you an employer. I can give you an example of it.
No, I'll put on my nice shirt and I'll be professional.
Oh yeah. If I get who I think I'm gonna get, I don't think we need to be that professional, but we'll see. So, but yeah, we'll I definitely want to get that done. That would be pretty cool, and it'll be kind of like the first official collab with the library. So that's gonna be really nice. So again, that's in the works. I just wanted to kind of say that I'm excited for that if that happens. I'm just gonna quick fly around. I'm gonna just randomly pick people. And we'll just even talk about what we got planned for next month in terms of gaming or anything in particular, something that's happening that you want to share. Frax, I'll put you on the spot.
Oh, well, there's the continued updates to Monster Hunter Wilds that I'm definitely excited for because, like, they had their first free content updates yesterday. So there's a few new monsters off that you can already fight right now. But aside from that, there's a bunch of content that they'll release over the course of the month, like a spring event, lots of cosmetics you can obtain from that, and the first monster with a new difficulty, which I am very excited for because even at the current difficulty, after the last update, there's a monster that is kicking ass like it's no one's business. So I am worried about what an even higher difficulty will bring because when Monster Hunter does that, that means the monster gets even more aggressive, quick, new moves, new attacks, new loot. Always nice. So there's going to be an exciting fight that will show me a close up of the floor a lot, probably.
And splash with a
From
lot
that,
of
as the usual Age of Empires nerding that I will be up to because like Age of Empires 2 is doing one of the biggest updates and DLC releases in the history of the game, aside from the actual expansions back in the day. Big overhaul of the Asian civilizations is coming this month. That will be exciting. And Age of Empires 4 actually is releasing a DLC themed around Night Orders, which makes the Knights Templar playable, and the House of Lancaster, which is the English house that won the famous Battle of Agincourt against France. So I'll be very interested in how that looks in the games.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's cool. I definitely want to get into play 4 some more.
Yeah. Like if we could do that on stream sometime, that would be awesome. There's not really a co-op game mode in there, but just fighting the AI and exploring how the game is different from Age of Empires 2 could be interesting, I think. And exploring the histories of the civilizations they put in there because they did take some unusual picks, in my opinion, which I like. Yeah, we can see about that.
I'll be down for that. We got to pick a day and we'll figure it out. So,
Hmm.
yeah, awesome. Let's see. I'll interject in between everyone. I'm looking forward to Tuesday to torturing you guys.
Oh
so
yeah,
it's gonna-
yeah. Yeah, I forgot to mention it, but I was thinking about that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Tuesday to being tortured. Yeah, I actually have a few plans that I will suggest, but I don't think any of them work. But I still want to suggest them because it's what my character would do. Now proceed to lynch me. Now,
Oh my God.
for their viewers, this is a valid argument as long as it doesn't annoy other people, which includes your DM. Moving on.
Maybe, Jordan.
Yeah.
You got any exciting things you're going to? Any conventions, conferences, games you're playing, sessions you're starting?
No.
anything?
I'm actually beginning to work on stuff with people for conventions for this summer. I'm only really able to get to one over the course of the summer. I've got some other vacation time I'm taking for some family issues, but I'm looking forward to a place called War Games Amongst the Warplanes. If you're in Geneseo, New York, or in that vicinity, it's basically a small minor convention that is held twice a year at the how do they what's the exact name for it? The Aviation Museum. They have a whole bunch of World War II and World War I airplanes in there. It's in an old airplane hangar and a VFW or a Veterans Association building, and they basically have like a couple game tables being run, an open gaming area, and a video game lounge. All been in there, and then you can walk amongst like the old B-52s and stuff like that up there. So I'm just looking forward to that one, and I'm helping a friend. She's trying to do a BattleTech demo for that event. So we're testing that one, and that's kind of going to be the next couple months is helping her getting her scenario kind of even and straightened out.
That sounds awesome.
That sounds. You showed me the pictures. And the fact that you just walk past like a B-52 to go play like a World War II bear game or something.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? I'm gonna send this thing after you guys. Like it's just really cool. I like it. So all right. Well, thank you for that. Core, what you got on the docket? I'm playing for the month. Anything exciting? Anything? you're
Yeah,
looking forward to?
I'm still finishing the first bigger content patch for Loft, which has been super fun. Open world survival game on flying islands that has been a lot of fun, and that's going forward in development now and looks promising, which I'm always excited about. Love me my EA open world survival games. And I'm kind of back into Helldivers 2 because they're still doing their actual game as a service thing, which is very awesome.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I've also been playing a lot of that.
Yeah, we just had one of the biggest battles in the history of the game.
Oh yeah,
We barely won it because of some, well, not really shenanigans, but just some really smart planning and using of the game mechanics. Because what happened was basically, a year ago we had the battle for Malevolent Creek, which was like the designated shithole of the first bot fronts, where due to a bug actually, or a mechanic that wasn't properly understood back then, the enemies were firing particularly intense. So it was a really intense battle. For the 1 year anniversary, the robots were trying to take it back as a blow to morale. So we had to make sure that didn't happen. So what ended up happening was they were trying to push planet by planet to reach that planet until it all came together on one planet called Spopley, and we reinforced that planet with the space station. We were losing badly. Like the bots were winning. The bots had only an hour left to win, and we were only halfway through with the progress. No way to catch up with that, except through donations. You can activate abilities on the space station. So in the last hour of that defense, we activated an ability as a community that halted the bots uh, in their progress. They couldn't make any progress anymore for 6 hours. And that extra time on paper would be enough to win the defense. In which case, there was not enough time in the campaign for the bots to reach Malevolent Creek. Thing was, the game master, because someone on the developer side is controlling that like a DM, the game master threw everything he had at that planet to make sure that we failed. So at one point, reinforcements were down to 3, resupplies were halved, and 2 of the elite corps of the robots, which adds unique units to the unit mixes, were on planets and in a level 40 invasion, which is really high level. So there was an incredibly intense fight with all the odds stacked against the player base, and they still won. Barely. That was amazing.
The things that can be done with that game because there's an actually like live DM.
Yeah, the idea to put an actual like game master behind the screens to direct the enemies is a genius move.
Yeah, I understand why it hasn't been done a lot, but I also kind of want to see if that'll be done more often. I know it's not. I don't know if it'd be sustainable for certain games because certain games start to lose popularity, and then all of a sudden,
It
that
needs a specific narrative. Like in Helldivers, it works because you have the eternal war narrative that's going on. So there's always a push and pull on how the battlefronts evolve. If you don't have that, it gets really difficult really quickly. You could probably make a fantasy version of it, but
You can
yeah,
also do things. You can also do things like seasons, where it's like, okay, for the month of whatever, it's going to be like a live event. So
yeah, that's
whatever.
basically what Diablo does, what Diablo 4 does, and that works. But it's not interactive. Like a big part of why Helldivers 2 is so successful with this mechanic is because there's a lot of interplay between the community and the developers. Like there's a lot of action and reaction to it, which
Yeah, that's what I
Makes
mean.
it
like,
feel way more impactful. Like, it makes you feel like you as a player are actually making a difference instead of you're playing just the season, and for this season there's an invasion from the circle of hate from hell, and then next season there's an invasion of witches, and then an invasion of vampires. Like, that's just all set in stone, and during the season that doesn't change. It's still
no,
really cool
that's
to play, but it's not as dynamic.
yeah, that's not what I meant. What I meant is because sustainable meaning like having a staff member
Oh
always
yeah,
be there for a game, and then the game's population
several.
not be.
Like the game master for Arrowhead, like Joel is the head of the team, but there's several people. Like, I think
Yeah.
there's 4 or 5 total that work with the Galactic War. So yeah, you do need to hire staff for that and
Yeah.
pay them for something that
Well-
not strictly necessary.
But what I'm talking about is there are certain games that may not be as popular or as large as Helldivers, because we gotta admit Helldivers is doing pretty well population wise.
Yeah.
So having a team for kind of these events might be like wasted resources, but like doing seasonal events where during that time the devs are going to be active and doing that reactive style of gameplay, so
Maybe, yeah.
so that brings people back to the game because there's a new content patch and then they're going to be doing things. That'd be really, really cool.
Yeah, maybe that sounds like something that a lot of the MMOs that are still around could try.
I
I mean,
remember
the thing is, the really attractive part, it's immersion storytelling. The players have been writing history for the game, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's
I
true. A lot of
remember
the history of the Second Galactic War is because of the way that things resolve, and the way things resolve is entirely because of the way the players decide to make things work.
yeah, I remember I think it was Matrix Online, that old MMO,
Hmm?
that the characters from the movie were played by DMs, like your game masters. So
Oh, yeah.
like the game masters actually walked around in character from time to time, just there in the world, so players could like interact with them and talk to them and whatever. And they weren't always there. Obviously, they come in once in a while, but it was kind of an interesting concept. But I've never seen that done again.
I've seen it once in a different MMO, but there was only one event that was never repeated. There was a temporary boss encounter on RuneScape, which exists for like a month or so, and it's good. Like, the funny thing about it was that any GM, any employee of the company even, could take over the boss monster and give it special abilities and start controlling it, and talk as the boss monster and have its name be replaced. So, but that was only once. That was easily 10 years ago, if not more. But it was funny.
Yeah, that sounds good. But yeah, it'd be kind of cool if there was there was like a game that does that. The only one that does do that is City of Heroes, because
Yeah.
the server the game masters of the servers do kind of show up as like NPCs with the costumes and stuff and do a game. But it's it's a smaller game and whatever. So that is actually one of the few ones that do run that. And definitely while talking with them, I'm still planning on doing more stuff with them. There's like a lot of really cool events that they've done. So definitely, it would be kind of cool. I would like to see live games of the live service done like Helldivers more often, where it's like it's adding to the game instead of let's take away things and then you have to earn it. Now this is like the game works without it, but this is adding to it, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so Core, did you have anything else?
No, that's it for me, really. Also looking forward to being traumatized on Tuesday, but that's a given.
That's a given.
Yeah, that's Tuesdays camp. I've been cooking. I've been cooking for a while. So I'm hopefully able to present a compelling story that gets you guys invested in it and get you guys to care about the NPCs and not always positive ways, because not everyone is always going to be kind of black or white, good, bad. Some people are in the middle, and some people are just kind of like, well, yep, I kind of expect this. So we're gonna see where it goes. So, and I think I found a party that can engage with the story, because generally I have like younger folks that kind of want to just kill monsters. I think I got enough party that I engage enough and care enough about that it's going to be a lot more fun, and I can actually do more of the things that I've always wanted to do. So I'm not going to spoil much because I want to see your reactions live. And
No,
asking,
jokes about cruel DMs aside, I'm very excited.
Yeah.
yeah, when you guys mentioned the Chris Perkins heal DM, I'm like, I kind of try to do that too. I kind of try to make things compelling, so that's why I make I actually enjoy it every time I watch it. So I think DMs like that have influenced me a lot. So
That explains so much.
yeah. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Definitely looking forward to. I'm going through a lot of my strategy maps in terms of TTRP, not TTRPGs, my strategy RPGs.
Mm.
So your like Fire Emblem likes and Final Fantasy Tactical. So I'm going through them to try to learn more, play them, because I haven't really played a lot of them, and it's actually reminded me that's one of my favorite genres. I know Dark Deity was a game that came out a few years ago. Dark Deity 2 came out recently. So Dark Deity was a game that I played recently. I'm still playing, and the second game just came out, which is why I'm playing it. Because I just want to kind of get into that. We played Across the Obelisk, which is a really fun, kind of like a Darkest Dungeon, Slay the Spire kind of co-op game, which is a lot of fun. So I'm kind of getting into that to kind of get some ideas and kind of like see the kind of games that I enjoy, and kind of finding time to play some of these single player games that I haven't played a lot. So but yeah, that's basically what I got on the docket mostly. The Tuesday tour. Finishing Split Fiction with RC as we bumble around and try to figure things. That game is amazing. That was a lot of fun last night.
It's really fun to watch you play.
I recently recommended the predecessor to a work colleague of mine because he mentioned playing the Lego adventure games with his wife and looking for something kind of in the same way. And I was like, hey, wait, split screen, funny co-op games. I might have something for you there. Because yeah, amazing games.
Yeah, I think that studio has earned my Larian seal of approval. So,
I mean, the thing is, that's how kind of some studios can still operate, because they have big gaps between their games, but the games just come out amazing.
Yeah,
and I love the developer. It's super wholesome, and I mean, like, again, I've mentioned this before. The fact that this game is basically his love letter to his kids. The kids are named after the characters are named after his two daughters, and these are stories that kind of are reminiscent to like the bedtime stories he used to read them. So I just love that kind of like passion. I love it. Absolutely love it. So and it'll be kind of funny, like when they grow up and the girls act either very similar to those characters or completely opposite. It'll be really funny when they look back at the game. So all right. I think we're good. I've still got a big crowd here. people have been sitting here watching the screen. I have the screen playing on the other side with Twitch so that they can hear us. So I have some people sitting there watching, not knowing that I'm here. And there comes a bunch of faces looking in my direction because they know I'm here. So yeah, but I think this is a good place to stop it for the month. We've been on for a little bit. Get some stretch, some hydration, rest, and relaxation. Enjoy your Saturday. As always, I really appreciate everyone who kind of sits and supports and watches, even if they're watching on VOD, or you come in during the stream live and interact with chat. We're closing in on a year of doing this, and I didn't think we'd be this far in a year. And I appreciate every moment that I get to do this, and I hope to continue doing it for another year more and another year.
Hell yeah.
That means I have to torture you guys so that it lasts. That's all I need.
Oh no.
With that, any final words before we raid? I think we already have a raid on in the chamber. So.
You may torture me and traumatize me, but I have a W plan in chats to have my revenge on God for real.
Do your worst.
No, that's it. Like, was this my mad aura?
I'm taking mental damage.
I think Jordan has disconnected and checked out after he's heard.
Oh no, I'm still here. I'm
so
still here.
So you're suffering with all.
I wouldn't blame you.
I've just switched over to basically being focused on Corrado Trigger, but you guys are in the background.
Hey, you know what? That's a strategy to just tune Frax out and pretend he's not there.
Damn.
It's like
Can't believe
it's like I
this.
can almost hear his voice. It's like he's almost.
I can make that happen. God damn. If you don't want me to be here, I can just go.
Wait, we're supposed to bully the DM, not the players.
Oh yeah, shit.
No.
No wait, I thought I was supposed to bully fast.
Yes.
He's not here.
Yeah, and?
How about we go over and the raid? What is it? Seder raid?
I mean, would be fitting.
Yep.
Aren't we? I think we're raiding. Is it Afton? So it's also
Yep.
fitting.
But he recently made affiliate, so let's make it an affiliate, right?
Yeah.
Affiliate raid. Yeah, let's show him some support. We love to show the community. He's always been in all of our things.
Yeah.
For support.
Yep.
The least we can do is go torture him too. I'm sorry, go support him. I promise I'm not crazy people on the other side. Like the screen looking at me weird.
Yeah.
All right. Well, bye everybody. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast, and we'll see you next month.
See ya.
Have a good month. Bye
Have a
bye.
nice month.
Nice.
Oh god, Jokan.
Oh shit, he can actually
Oh.
stream Monster Hunter on this PC. Good on him.
Oh,
Oh my goodness! Hello, Raiders! Welcome in! Welcome in, all of you!
I'm glad he got a new PC.
Thank you all!
Yeah.
For those who are just joining us, my name is Afton Goodwill, and I am doing my first ever affiliate stream by celebrating Monster Hunt by doing some Monster
fine.
Hunter Wilds.
Don't
For
say
anyone who
don't say
is
anymore.
wanting to join in on this, you're welcome to do so. The squad code is in here. And for any of us joining us who have been here before, you may have noticed
I got a golden banana in front of my name. I've already won.
You may notice that not only you have channel points,
Oh my
also
God.
a massive variety of
is that why you kept saying banana?
quite a few other things.
Yeah.
And thank you for the support.
Because